that. It wasn't like
without really, they just were holding them and flipping them.
That's exactly right. But right now, that number is sitting at a third of what that was at the peak. So we're still looking very healthy in terms of like, we're not seeing signs of that speculation. So right now, the fundamentals, essentially what I'm saying, we don't look like we're too concerned about being in a speculative bubble right now, but the risk is high because that price appreciation exposes us if something bad happens.
Well,
it's a tough situation.
So there's always two conversations, and that is about what's going to happen this year. 99% of the men and women in this room only care about this year. Admit it. If we go, you're going to be fine. Everybody goes, party. We're good. We're good. Look, I read a report from Zillow who said all bets are off. They think the prices are going to jump 22%, and it's going to, they're going to jump 22%. They said.
It's interesting because when you
they're the only ones who said that. Everybody else has said more in a line of anywhere from 5% to 9%.
Right. So let's stop the bubble conversation, because I look at this, and the 80s aren't here, but that was a little more volatile. The 90s, tell us about it, because it looks really boring to me. And then things got fun and crazy. Is it going to get crazy again?
You know, all I can tell you is that we made money every year.
Yep.
As individual real estate agents, as brokerage owners, Keller Williams, all of us, if you literally got after it, you made money.
Yep. I remember during the recession, you said you get to choose whether you participate or not. And so as we were looking at this and we say, okay, this was a record year, the question I have for you is, did it feel like that for you? Because if it didn't, we're probably a habit or two away from changing that and loving it.
Yeah. Well, okay. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's look at inventory. So here's the thing that really caused all of this, and that is historically low inventory. And again, it's fascinating. You can look at when did we go into the Great Recession? Well, you can see it. You were actually there in 05. It started at the last quarter of 05. Economically, they say that it actually occurred in 07, 08. But in the real estate industry, if you were around then, you actually saw it happen in the last quarter of 05. I remember where I was sitting when we went through the data, and I went, oh no.
If somebody said, a listing agent, we're noticing that our showings are down precipitously in 05, and that was the first signal.
Well, you crossed the line from being in a buyer's market to being in a seller's market.
Yeah.
And you saw the jump and you went, okay, something's happening. And then there we went. And you notice again, you were in a seller's market during that period for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. The thing that we understand, I'm going to go back and just make one more comment real quick, okay? Because what happens is you're talking to a buyer or seller, and they say, should I sell? Should I buy? Right? And people are usually driven, if not majority driven, by a change in their life or another decision they want to make, right? I want a bigger house, I want a smaller house, blah, blah, blah. There's also the economic consideration. And what I understand, and you can look at this with great certainty and tell someone that if you plan to live in a home at least 10 years, it doesn't matter when you buy it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now we're going to look later at the very end of our presentation. We're going to look at how long consumers said they anticipated staying in their home. And of course, the crazy is that you even have any percents that go less than a year. You go, oh no. That's risky.
Yeah.
All right. So we look back at inventory. And the thing about inventory, if we go look at this on a month-to-month basis, you'll notice what happened. And in March of 2020, right, COVID hits. And you immediately see the inventory going up. And then what happens 90 days later in real estate is it literally flipped. Everybody was getting ready for the big fall. And for about 90 days, and you can see this, we'll see this when we look at the employment numbers. You'll see how many people lost their jobs during that 90-day period. It's like 21 million jobs were lost in 90 days, which is, again, unheard of. And this is what happened to real estate. But real estate was still selling. In other words, in the worst employment period, 90 days ever, we still only had a 4.6 month supply of real estate. I mean, you would have thought it would have been, we have 100 months, we have 200 months. It didn't happen. And again, as business people and as advisors and consultants to people that buy and sell real estate, this kind of perspective is really important, okay? So you look over and you go all the way to the end over here, and you realize in December of 2020, we got down to 1.9 months of inventory in the United States. Again, unheard of, never seen before. Flip over to the purple in January, you see that in 2021, it was 1.9 again, it was 2. It got up as high as 2.6 in August, but here we are again. And in December, we were the lowest months of inventory in the history of the real estate industry ever recorded. Now, and people go, it's so hard, but you do realize in order to sell 6.1 million homes, you had to have 6.1 million homes to sell. So it's not that you didn't have the inventory. What you had was instant sales.
Yeah, the velocity of sales was unheard of.
Yeah, I think the thing that I think caught myself and a lot of us off guard about the pandemic was that it shifted what people needed from their houses. And if you look back through times in history when that happens, home sales surge because all of a sudden there's like a new demand that gets generated because people's requirements for their house shift, and people who may have been settled and weren't going to turn over for 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden it's like all coming on the market at once, and demand just went through the roof.
Now, so are you in a bubble? No, probably not. Not today, you're not. Are you beginning to blow a bubble? Yeah, probably so. You know, well, Gary, how long will the bubble, if we're blowing it, how long will it last before it pops?
Yeah, how long?
Yeah, we have no idea. You have no idea. And because if we go to war, right, in the Ukraine, that bubble could burst pretty quickly, right, depending upon that. The flip side is the government absolutely tries to govern the economy, right, by raising interest rates. And as well-intentioned as the federal government in the United States is, never underestimate the gifts they'll give you by making the wrong decision. And that's not a criticism. It's in the moment, it looks like that's the right thing to do. And then later they look up and they either overstimulated the economy or they ground it to a halt. In other words, it's hard to get it exactly right. And that's literally the way, they call it economic cycles. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And what people don't really understand is that when it goes up, the government takes actions to slow it down and causes it. And usually they do a little too much and it goes down too far. And then of course they didn't try to stimulate it, and then they stimulate it, and a lot of the times they overstimulate it and off we go. Right now we're in overstimulation. There's no question about that. When you were looking at the abyss, the government went out and said, we have to spend money, we have to give people money, we have to do all of these things to make sure that we don't go into a depression. Well, Republican or Democrat, you could criticize all you want, but in the end, the right decisions were made to keep us out of a depression. But this is what you get when you overstimulate, right? You get people that have more money in savings than they ever had before, not because they worked, but because the government gave them the money. Yet businesses applied for PPE thinking that they were going into the abyss and then they didn't, and they looked up and they had more cash than they'd ever had. So now we know what people do when they have more cash, Bill, than they've ever had before. Now we know. They don't work. They call in sick a lot. They change jobs. Yeah, that's right. And I think this is uncharted territory. All of this is new. There's no, since recorded history going back to 1776, they haven't said this before.
Yeah, it's the lowest inventory on record, what
Yeah.
we saw.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's look at mortgage rates. Don't panic. We spend more time on this, we go really fast on the other stuff. Because we're only 4 pages in. Oh, no. Yeah, that's what our granddaughter says. Oh, no. Yep. So mortgage rates. Look, I always point this out because I have a fond memory. I got in the real estate industry in 1979. And you see what interest rates did in 1980, 1979, 1980, 1981, 82? Can you believe that? You're over here worried about 4% mortgages. I was dealing with 17%. And by the way, sold 6 houses my first month. You can sell real estate. People will still buy and sell, you guys. It's pretty awesome. But look at what's going on. You're living in unprecedented times. If you look at that trend line of approximately 6% going back to 1990 for the average mortgage, look, if you got in the real estate industry, pick it. 02, 03, you really have never experienced high mortgage rates. You've been living in the cheapest era of money. You're pretty smart. Good time. For those of us who've been in this a long time, we look up and we go, oh my gosh, this is unreal, right? Yeah. People always ask the question, do you think it'll go back up? And the answer is,
It
no.
is.
No, all the
Not
way
that
back up to
high.
17%. No, because the government, for all its pros and cons, one of the things it gets right is once they see how something works and they understand it, they draw up hypothesis around it, and then they already have a plan to make sure that never happens again. Okay, and I have 100% confidence in that. So what do we think mortgage rates are going to do? Well, we ended the year, they kept saying, we're going to get these rate hikes, Ruben, and we're going to see mortgage rates probably go as high as 4% in 2022. But where are we right now?
Yeah, so on Thursday, they were already at 3.9. So we're kind of like aiming at a moving target right now a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot of volatility recently. So they were at 3.9 on Thursday, but then treasury rates dropped like 25 basis points on Friday. So on next Thursday, I expect to see rates come back down a little bit. So I think we're going to be bouncing around a lot. We're probably trending up toward 4.5% next year if they keep trending up. But if something bad happens, we bring rates back down again. It's going to be hard to predict next year, honestly.
Yeah, they're going to look at one thing. They're going to look at, are we still overstimulating the economy? That's all they're going to look at. If in fact it looks like things are calming down, they're not going to touch it. If they think that inflation is rampant, they're going to keep raising that rate till they stop it.
Yeah, everything happening in the US right now says that rate should trend up. Stuff happening in other parts of the world right now is pushing treasuries back down a little bit. So that's the thing we have to watch.
Yep. So here, by the way, all of that is mumbo jumbo because it all translates into this slide. And that is, what can I afford? And remember, the formula for buying a home is the price of the house plus the price of the cost of money if you're not paying cash. So when we look at affordability, again, I always point out to people, when I got in the real estate industry, it went from 26 to 36% of your income to make your mortgage payment. And look where we exist today. It rose a little bit to 16, but it's only 16% right?
Which is wild because you saw the median sales price at projecting $378,000.
It's still only 16%.
That's the story. They're buying the payment, not the price.
And it's still only 16%. I mean, I could say that 100 times, and it's still only 16%. And that's when you all of a sudden you get perspective and you go, so is everything overpriced? It is for the first time buyer. That's we'll look at that in a little while. For the first time buyer, it absolutely is. And that's a challenge.
It takes 24% of the first time home buyer's income to buy their house. So it's always higher, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But it's a big jump. And we also know that they are carrying a lot of school debt, which complicates it and is pushing their purchase back.
I think that's 100% right. So the long-term average is about 20%. We could clearly get back to that. Make no mistake about it. You keep these kind of price jumps, and we'll be here a year from now, and we'll be talking about it being 18% or 19% if we keep seeing that. Historically, how does that rank? Below average. It still ranks well. So again, I believe these are the kind of charts, depending upon who you're working with, that you simply pull out and you can show them time frames of this to get them to understand perspective. Okay. All right, so let's look at Canada real quick. We'll go through the same numbers real quick because Canada in so many ways is a mirror image of the United States. So again, they had 667,000 home sales, and they anticipate it being at 611,000 this year. You can see the steady climb, though. It's fascinating. We don't have in Canada what you had in America, these deep dives, which is really fascinating. This is the one that defies all logic.
Oh, stop it already with this.
So the 4.4 was what was the average through historically. So if you see it being run out like that, you go, boy, they left that average far behind. And it just kept going and going and going.
When do we change the trend line? Because this looks outrageous at this point. Stop it, Canada.
Yeah, no, we're not going to change it. Because it puts it all in perspective. The 4.4 is more of a hope, is more of a target number, just like in America. And that is, if you have GDP of 2 to 3%, unemployment below 5%, right? You have inflation in check at about 2%, then you would see home price appreciation in that 4 to 4.5%. Does that make sense? Those are all the numbers that we want to understand. So when you're reading the news, you literally just go, we'll talk about it in a second. I'll walk you through it and show you. And this is what you look for. And if all the dials show up the way they should, you're good to go. And if they start changing, then you need to pay attention to that. So there you go. They left that a long time ago, right? Now this is in American dollars, US dollars. Remember, there's a $1.20 to a Canadian dollar right now, conversion rate approximately. So when we see that high number, that's really 581 or 549, 549,000 in US dollars. But that still is about $200,000 more than what it would cost in America on average, right?
The thing that's interesting to that one for me, Gary, is we know Canada's passed some foreign buyer taxes over the last 5 years. This sort of talks about that in a way, right? Because if I'm buying in US dollars, the Canadian markets look very different to me than it has if I'm paying in Canadian dollars. If I'm earning my living in Canada versus competing with somebody who's coming from outside of Canada, these prices are very different than the other ones. So it helps explain the outside demand that's been like very prevalent in a lot of Canadian cities.
Yeah. And this is just an interesting sidebar, and that is 24% of the population in Canada resides in two areas, the Greater Toronto area and the Greater Vancouver area. There's nothing like that in the United States. It's highly concentrated. So when you include them in the price, the average price is $748,000 as of January 22nd. If you take those two areas out, then the average price is $588,000. And if you drop that down by what, 100,000 or so to go into US dollars, Then you have the average price is 480,000 or so versus 300 and where are we at now? 50. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's not as crazy then as you think when you do the apples to apples, if you take those two areas out.
What is interesting there is you saw them try to do more legislation to slow down the market. And
That's a great
it has
point.
had very little effect.
That's a great point. Canada, I think, again, they have the best banking system in the world, bar none. And they did everything in their power to slow things down, and it didn't work. They're scratching their head.
A lot of the demand was coming from foreign buyers because there was a way for them to get a visa by owning property there. And so we saw the legislation hit in those big market areas, but then people just started buying properties elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because the rules were set on a local level, not a national.
Yeah,
That's
and
interesting.
we saw that legislation have an immediate impact.
It's not horrible. I mean, that actually works, right? And you can see the breakdown of where it's takeaway of what's that, which again is a massive number. Drives me crazy. Almost financial, that's be good. Yeah, you okay. We got all that. We got all that. Okay. House sellers found their agent, 39%.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello. All right, guys, remember that section that we skipped right at the beginning? This whole class skips the listing lead generation. Well, Wendy asked me a question the minute we went on break. She said, where do you get your listings from? So let's look at this. I found it. I zoomed forward and I landed right on it. This is from the vision speech where the NAR does a study and they ask, how do the sellers find and select their realtor, their listing agent? So we all know, number one, 39%. It's funny, it's actually gone down. Look at that. It's higher in 2006. But number one is referred by a friend. So when people say, I want to be a realtor, what kind of business are you in? You're in the lead generation business, and that lead generation activity should be, the majority should be what? Working your SOI, your sphere of influence. So how do you work your sphere of influence to get referrals? You give, well, yeah, first talk to them. That might help. Engage with them, talk to them, but give value. Get creative, get fundamental, whatever it takes, give value to your friends and family. One of the easiest ways to give value to your friends, family, your sphere of influence is to give them knowledge. Educate them on these things. When you're at that party and they say, hey, how's real estate going? Don't just say good. Right? Like get into it a little bit with them and say, it's actually very fascinating. Why do you ask about the real estate market? I'm just being polite. All right, but really, why do you ask? Are you a seller, a buyer? Have you ever thought about investing in real estate? Because there's a really crazy cool phenomenon right now. If you are a home buyer and have been a home buyer for the last 12 months to 2 years, congratulations, you're pretty stinking rich. You have at least $100,000 equity in your house. What do you want to do with that? You want to leave it there and keep writing it? Or maybe it's time that you invest in real estate and we do a cash out refi or a HELOC. Maybe we take that money and we actually go buy something, right? Have good conversations, educate people, have fun. What's number two? Repeat buyer. So it's kind of the same thing when you're SOI already. And then it's good old conversations, personal contact by agent. Guys, that is prospecting. That is, they stopped you at an open house, they door knocked, they did something. Okay, so before we get into it, is everybody back yet? I'm killing time to make sure. Okay, we got a good portion of the class. Looks like we're only missing a few people. Guys, we have a big thank you. Let me turn on this slide right here. Everyone get fed? You get enough food? Because we cleaned it out. There's nothing but cookies left. Look how healthy we are. We leave the cookies for last. We are so healthy. That is so good. Guys, big thank you to Mike Brown. Mike, come up here. Let's give him a round of applause. Mike Brown, sponsor of our lunch. Mike, let's just take a quick second and talk intro lend. You guys, intro lend. I think it's very important that we understand Mike's role in here in our office. He has an office upstairs by the rest of us. And intro lend is a very interesting model that we have here at Keller Williams. He's more than just a loan officer. As you guys know, we also have First Colony right here in our office, and a lot of us work with First Colony. So there's a question that comes up periodically, and that is, what's the difference between First Colony and intro lend? Are they competitors? Are they on the same team? Like, what's going on here? Who's had that question? It's kind of confusing, right? Intro lend. Intro lend, it's in the name, is a platform that introduces our clients and helps us as agents have a little more control over the process in introducing our clients to companies like First Colony or like many companies that are part of intro lend. And so the model that we're running here at KW and we're inviting everybody to participate in is download the intro lend app, get to know Mike, who's the finance manager. And when you have those clients and say, hey, I want to shop mortgages, I want to start that process, you say, great, I'm going to fast track you, which is a very simple app on their phone that they can download. You guys can all search for it right now. It's intro lend, and they can fill out fast track, which allows him to package up a neat and tidy package and go shop it. They'll shop First Colony, they can shop wholesalers, they can shop anybody. But what's the cool part and the reason why we were so excited as a brokerage to do this is it gives us, the agents, some control to say, cool, Mike, package this up, but I actually only want it going to First Colony. Or actually, I want you to go to one of these crazy wholesalers and see if we can't get just an awesome, awesome rate, even though it might be a little bit challenging of an experience compared to one of our retail lenders. But they're cheaper, like there's options out there, and he can kind of go through that shopping. But you as the agent, when you're sending the fast track, can determine, how do I want this person's experience to be? How do I want it to be shopped? And so it's intro lend, it's introducing them to lenders. It's a really cool program. There's been a lot of success with it. The app alone is so much easier than a lot of the others. And First Colony, Security National, a lot of our friends who are at these banks are embracing this. They like it because they get a neat and tidy package delivered up to them from Mike that says, hey, these people are ready to go. Go get them a loan, and he can follow up and provide some accountability there. So Mike, thank you for lunch. What do you want to tell us? Yes. I can get it off just a little bit, I guess. Our little cast around
appreciate.
broke.
So you've done a lot of my job for me. Thanks.
Well,
I appreciate it.
I'm surprised at how many of us are like, what's going on? There's intro lend, there's First Colony. What's the difference?
No, it's perfect. Here, I'm going to pass these out so that you've got them, right? These flyers are going to introduce a little bit more of what's going on and what's happening, right? The second page of the flyer does have the QR code to the app so that you can download that and have that on your phones ready to go. It's real easy to set up. It'll ask you for your phone number as you first register in on it. And then it'll immediately start showing you who's there and available on the platform. Kind of like Clay said, my job really here is to try and help you guys in making sure that, one, we're getting your clients, those people that you're working with, pre-approved. So I work through the application. I go through all of the steps of trying to make sure that they've got a loan program that they fit and fall underneath, right? And then I take them out shopping for those rates and for those lenders. And I specifically do that based off of your recommendations, right? So you, as you put somebody through the platform, you'll be able to select their name. You'll give them an email along with a text message with my online mortgage application link. And that'll take them directly to their individualized portal where they can start filling things out and submitting in their documents to me. Along with that, and several of you have experienced it, right? You also get to pick the lenders in which you would like to see bids to come back from, right? Whether that be a First Colony, whether that be an Intercap, whether that be Security National Mortgage, or whether you select me as the lender on that platform as well. The idea is that I have several options myself. I've got probably about a dozen different wholesale options, which I'm able to also shop around with, along with the other local lenders here in the area, right? And so whether it comes through me, whether it or excuse me, whether I do the loan through one of the wholesale options or one of the partner lenders, the entire idea on the platform is that we are helping your clients get into the best rates, financing, partnership with those lenders that's out there and available to them, right? Kind of like Clay said, if it means speed, maybe that is going through one of the partner lenders who we know and have those relationships set up with to just punch things out and get things done for us. If price is one of those options, right? There's a lot of these that I'm extremely competitive with on my wholesale options. The entire idea, right, is to give them those options and allow them to be able to select that and review that. And as I work with those lenders that you guys have those relationships with, I'm learning more and more and have developed out those relationships with different loan officers and what they're capable of doing at the same time. It's real easy to be able to sit down, review those bids, and talk to those clients about what's going on, right? All at the same time, I'm in contact with you guys to make sure that we're getting things set up and doing things the way that you kind of want to see it done at the same time. So as I talk to clients through the app, you'll also get the messages and the notifications updates as to what exactly is going on with that file and what's happening with it, where we're at in that progress, eliminating the unknown, right? Of you've sent them to a lender or they're telling you that they're with a lender and you have no idea where that's at or what stage of the process they're in, right?
There's a question in the back. Hey, Mike, what's a wholesale mortgage?
What's a wholesale mortgage lender? Okay, so the idea with me, right, is I end up acting as a mortgage broker at the same time, right? Kind of like an insurance broker who's able to go out to several different insurance providers out there. I do the same thing with mortgages, right? Whether that be through companies like Loan Depot, Rocket Mortgage, United Wholesale Mortgage, Cardinal. There's a lot of them out there. And the idea with these wholesale lenders is they are specific to my platform and what I do. I end up selling the loans to them and they originate and put things together for me, all in the name and idea that we're helping them out with pricing and with getting things done as quick as we can, right? So again, the idea as we go through that entire platform, you're integrated into it as much as the clients are and as much as I am in trying to provide that help and help them out through that pre-approval process, right? So again, I act more like a finance manager on that front as we're talking to your clients in putting them through and getting them pre-approved. Once they have selected a lender, kind of like Clay was saying, everything that I've gathered up from them, their pay stubs, their W-2s, their tax returns, their application, everything that's there in a nice package, which is why these lenders appreciate what it is that I'm doing and the role that we play. I have nice relationships with all of these lenders that are out there because we provide such a neat, clean package for them, hopefully before they even go under contract, so that they can hit the ground running and moving quick. We know that as soon as it gets into that lender's hands, there's something available to them. You don't have any doubts once that contract is under place that this thing is going to get done and it's going to happen, right? Because we've already gone through all of those steps, all of those processes to make sure that things are moving, right? Again, as we move things over to that lender, you're fully integrated in on it. I let everyone know and introduce everyone when those moves happen so that you're fully in the loop and have every idea of what's going on with those loans. It ends up being a really nice process through the communication standpoint, from you knowing exactly what's going on and what's happening with it. You don't have to guess, they've gone out to XYZ lender that we've never worked with, that you've never seen before, never had any contact with. You know that if we go through the platform, not only are you giving them options as to which lenders are out there and available, which is important, right? To give your people those options rather than just send them through one person, right? You want to make sure that we're cutting down on the process of them taking time by submitting multiple applications, multiple documents to different lenders, right? We're cutting that all down so that it's on one smooth, easy process. With one, I can get multiple bids coming back, right? That's the entire idea of the platform. We're here to help you as much as we possibly can, right? Please look at downloading the app. looking at it. And if there's any questions as to what's going on or how to get things going with it, please, my information's there on the card, and I'm happy to help answer any of those questions and get things taken care of for you.
Literally go knock on your office door because you're upstairs.
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to start is just put yourself through as a test, right? That way you can see exactly how everything's integrated and everything flows.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Mike. Give him a hand. You know, we kind of breezed over it fast, but one of the pre-qualifying questions for listings to kind of tie this into the listing conversation, when we find out their motivation is to upsell or downsell, and they're going to be purchasing real estate, oftentimes before I even go on the listing presentation, I will go get them pre-approved. And Mike will go through that process. And then when he generates the pre-approval letter, one of the conditions will say contingent upon selling their home, right? But then I've got it and I know, hey, these people actually can go buy. Believe it or not, there are sellers out there that own a home, but actually won't qualify to buy a home. These are people that have lost their job, or maybe they've retired and they don't have enough income coming in that they actually no longer qualify for the next home. I want to know that, because the last thing in the world I ever want to participate in is making someone homeless. Here we sell their home and then they're not qualified, you know, to go buy a new home. That's a problem. Yeah.
One more thing, I'll just share it as one of the success stories from this week, right? I had an agent send me over a borrower who was looking at trying to just refinance the property, right? What ended up happening with this is I talked to him, and these are the same conversations that you guys are having with your people as well. The guy ended up deciding to pull out the equity of his house and purchase 2 other investment properties. That ended up being 3 transactions that we ended up doing, and the agent got 2 of those back. Right?
Sweet.
Which is awesome. It's super cool.
That's exactly what we were talking about. The opportunity for you to bring value to your clients and explain to them those kind of opportunities. That's cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. You guys ready to dive back in? Sink our teeth into this? It's the best part of the whole day right here, listing presentation. But before we actually go through my listing presentation, let's talk about the fundamentals and the skeleton of it. Let's open up to page 55. Page 55. Page 55. All right, we've got the appointment. We're heading in. We're heading in. So what's the objective of the listing appointment? I'm going to ask a real basic question. What are we trying to accomplish? Why are we here? What are we doing? Okay, so number one, we want a listing agreement. This is our business. This is our job, right? We want the ERS. What else do we want? What are our objectives for having this meeting? We want to get the listing, sure, but what else? Let's all get on the same page. Let's come out of that listing appointment with a plan. Good. And with that plan, we talked about it earlier today, we absolutely want clear expectations, right? That's our job as agents, to translate the market in a way that people can set realistic expectations. So we're going to prepare ourselves. We're going to know our scripts and materials. We're going to understand the market. We're going to use communication techniques that build rapport. That's why we touched on personality for a second, so we can speak their love language or their communication language. And this is the most important thing. And I want you to grab your pen and I want you to circle it, highlight it, star it, kiss it. You are going to be a consultant, not a slimy agent. Okay, what does that mean? What's the difference between an agent and a consultant? Yeah. Bingo. This is one of my biggest pet peeves in our industry, is people forget the fundamental component of agency is fiduciary. And she just nailed it. You put their needs above your own. People will absolutely feel the difference. And there's thousands of agents that walk in and they're there to make a commission, and it's about them. And it's not about being that fiduciary where you care about their interests and you actually take the time to ask questions and diagnose the best plan that you can put forth. And that comes from being a consultant. It's a pet peeve because we all know what I'm talking about. Like, the reputation of agents in general is clear down there with like car salesmen. That's sad. And you guys will meet them. There's a lot of people out there that are clearly in it for themselves. They want to make a quick buck and they really aren't passionate about caring about their clients, right? So be a consultant, not just an agent. And of course, you have your appointment toolkit, which we'll dive into. So turn the page. We're just going to touch on them quick, and then we'll dive into it. Number 1 says know your scripts. When we talk about scripts and dialogues, who hates scripts here? Who doesn't like scripts? Like, let's just get real for a second. I see some hands. Why don't you like scripts? Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why don't you like scripts? They're awkward. Why don't you like scripts, Jake? Key phrases. Well, that's what I'm getting at. Scripts absolutely has a bad rep. When I first heard, like, I hear at Cato, we like, hey, we're gonna do scripts and dialogues. I said, I want to be a robot. I want to be me. Like, I don't want to just be like a scripted person, because we've all heard those telephone calls when it's like, hello, do you want to renew your car's warranty for another, like, it's like we just getting a robot script comes out. We get them all the time. So we don't want to be that. But this is my challenge to you guys. When we talk about in any training scripts, have what Jake just said. I want you to replace that word scripts in your head to answers. I want you to know the answers to hard questions. So when we talked at the very beginning, somebody said we want to be able to review some objection handlers. That's absolutely important. I want you to know your scripts and materials, and so know how to answer when somebody says, well, why don't we just list really, really high? Like, why not try that, right? To be able to answer that question is important, right? So know your answers to hard conversations. So that pitfall in the middle of page 56, not using scripts or answers because they don't want to sound insincere. The truth is, scripts only seem fake and insincere when they haven't been learned thoroughly, right? So for you to have equipped 3 different ways for you to answer why should somebody choose you over a discount brokerage and be able to turn that into your own words is absolutely the perfect scenario, right? So learn your scripts, attend classes and learn them. Number 2, market data. The quickest way to understand market data is the 10-4, right? Review 10 listings in your niche markets every single morning, whether that's physically walking through them or at least online. Learn the market data. Next one, use communication techniques that build rapport. Notice the very first one, listen, listen, listen. This is a consultation. We call it the listing presentation, and I think that's a flaw. It should be called the listing consultation. Now there's almost a level of this is your appointment, right? This is the appointment. You're going to have a portion of it that is presentation, and you're going to have a portion that is consultative. Now, is it 50-50? No, it's going to vary between who you're talking to. An example of this is the SOI that calls you and says, hey, I'm ready to list my house, and I know I've got the listing. Right? I'm not competing. They already trust me. They're a past client, whoever. It's going to be like way over here, right? Very little presentation, all consultation. But then when you make the mistake, which I err on the side too often of actually consultative. At least I did for a while until I was in West Valley City, the city where I grew up. And there were these 2 little old ladies that lived together. They were so funny and fun to talk to. I started walking through their house. I spent 2.5 hours on this listing presentation, looking at their house, talking about what repairs or how we should stage it, laughing, joking around, having fun. It was like all consultation. And literally as I'm like wrapping it up, and I'm about to ask for the close, right? And say, okay, let's just review pricing and get going. And we start to go into pricing and say, okay, are you ready to sign the listing agreement and move forward? And they say, oh, well, hang on. We actually have 4 more interviews to go. And I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask them if they were interviewing multiple agents when I did the pre-qualifying phone call. And I forgot to ask in the beginning. I've been here 2.5 hours and I have presented nothing to them about what makes me different. And so I didn't have a chance and they had to run. So they said, oh yeah, we're going to meet with them and then we'll let you know, what we decide after. I did not get that listing. I like laughed with them for 2.5 hours. I was like their grandson. I thought it was like a done deal and I didn't get the listing. And in hindsight and in reflecting, I realized that shoot, I didn't ask the right questions, first of all, and I misgauged this. And I end up doing all this talking and yammering, and I didn't ask questions in a way that actually allowed me to deliver and present my value proposition. So you got to kind of judge like how much of this is presentation and consultation. Now there's other times where agents err on the far side. It's all presentation and it's all about them, and people feel it, they don't like it, or they realize, boy, you really didn't diagnose anything for me. It was just kind of all about you, and I'm gonna interview some other people too. So it is kind of tricky, and I don't want to like intimidate you guys going through this process, but you do have to find that sweet spot of presentation and consultation. And we'll demonstrate a little bit as we go through it, kind of talk through what points are you asking questions and what points are you presenting. Yeah, we talked about, I don't leave a listing presentation rarely without a listing agreement signed. Like I am a pretty hard closer on listings. I'm actually flawed on my buyer side. I'm not very good at getting my buyers to sign buyer broker agreements, and shame on me. And I've been rebuked for that many times, and I'm getting better at that. But listings, the listing is the natural close to a great consultation. Like if it's going well, you're answering questions, the plan's coming together, it's as simple as, hey, all we need to do now to get started and execute this plan is a quick signature for you to put me to work. And it's done right on the spot, right? Like it should be that natural, almost celebratory, we have a cool plan, let's make it happen. Green light me, let me go, let me loose. I'll use terms like that, like put me to work, sign here, and then they sign it. Right? Because you do risk that. The minute you give them the price, sometimes people just want the price, and now they're just going to list with a discounter because they got the price from you. Right? It gets a little tricky. And there are some dirt balls out there that abuse agents. I shouldn't say dirt balls, but you know what I mean. You know, people that abuse agents, get all that they want, and then just throw it on KSL. Yeah. Okay. Be a consultant, not just an agent. I think we talked about that. So turn to page 59. So the consultation, there's a few steps that I really like that this class underscores. Look down at the bottom here. You want to confirm the appointment before you go. I always call the same day, usually an hour or two before the appointment, just confirm it. There's nothing worse than having them ditch you, right? You drive all the way out to Eagle Mountain only to have somebody say, oh, shoot, I forgot about the appointment, right? During that confirmation, I'm going to ask a few other questions that you can ask at the first conversation, but there's a few additional questions that I absolutely want to make sure that they're ready for. Number one, I want to make sure that they have all of the decision makers at that meeting. If it's a husband and wife and they have joint tenancy, or even tenants in common for that matter, however they do it, I want them both there. I will literally reschedule the appointment if I have a spouse say, hey, my spouse actually can't make it, he or she had to stay late and work. Let's not do that. Sorry, but still come. I'm going to say, actually, no, let's reschedule. I want both decision makers there. Why? Don't want to do it twice. Exactly. I don't want them regurgitating and explaining my presentations. Spouses think they're in agreement and they're not. He's sitting next to his wife, everybody, right now. So yeah. Different objections. Yes, absolutely. People are on different pages with objections. And I'll tell you the biggest reason, can I walk out of that appointment with a signed listing agreement if both people on title are not there? No. So I can't accomplish literally the number one objective of having this meeting. So I want them both there for sure. What other questions might I might ask on that, on confirming the appointment? Bingo. I'm going to ask, hey, did you get that email? I just want to confirm, not a big deal. We'll review it when we meet, but I just want to make sure you got that. We'll go over your questions on it when we meet. And then probably the last question I always ask is simply, how much time do you have for this appointment? I've got to gauge it, right? I want to know kind of what their expectations are. I'll say, hey, how much time do you have? Are you in a rush? You got to go pick up kids from soccer? Do you have something? let's just frame it. Because I have had some people say, oh yeah, you've got 15 minutes. So I'm going to talk fast and I'm going to ask lots of questions and we're going to roll fast. Yeah.
So how do you handle when they have little kids? So there's a lot of distraction. Like, do you give them like advice in advance, like, hey, you have little kids? Or
Yeah, I've never asked anybody to like, don't have your kids there. If they have kids there, I always give the kids a homework assignment. I address the kids, I talk to them. I do, however, if they have children, this is actually really important. I'm glad you asked this. I do often, I will ask people, are your kids aware that you're about to make a move? Because I don't want to be the guy that puts my foot in the mouth and like, hey, we're moving, what? And the little kids start crying and mom and dad are getting divorced. What? I had no idea that happened. So divorces for sure. I will ask, hey, are their kids present? Are they aware? Is it okay if I'm walking through the house? You know, do you have renters in the house that need to be aware that I'm coming by? Because I do want to see their space as well and see the apartment. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, you're right on. Yeah.
What kind of assignments do you give?
yeah,
Okay, so the assignments that I give the kids are simple. Assuming that the kids know like they're moving. Usually when I start the listing presentation to give them something to do, I'll give them a couple of pieces of paper and say, hey, your guys' homework is I need you to draw your next dream house. I want you to draw your house, like show me, is there a pool? Is there a tree for a tree house? Like, what do you have? And then kids, it just gives them something to do. Unless the parents are putting them on an iPad or something, I'm gonna put them on an iPad by drawing a picture of their dream house. Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to mention that happened to me on a listing, my listing, but they didn't have like, they were so young, they were like babies, and then through out they were screaming, and there was diaper changing, you know, so the mom had to step out and like, yeah, don't worry, I'm a mom too. But then I felt like I couldn't be as professional, I couldn't keep it all together. So
Yeah.
it was a little frustrating, but I was smiling now. I got the listing too, but still. It's like, oh.
Maybe the dogs are coming in and out.
Yeah. So I've had this more than once, not a ton, but I've had more than once where there was a combination of a little bit of that. I was walking through the home, there was chaos, and I realized that I had kind of gotten off my game. I was like, this is just not going well. And I pivoted and I saved the deal by simply saying, hey, I'm just going to do the walkthrough now, take the notes of everything we have, and then I'm going to go back to my office, compile the comparables, essentially do the appraisal, get all that done. And then will you guys actually come into the office? And then can we finish this conversation once I have that done? And I split the listing appointment in half and had just the walkthrough. And we talked repairs and condition, but it was just like chaos. But then I literally had the rest of the conversation back at the office. I've done this a few times. In fact, there's agents you'll meet that's their preferred way to do all the their walkthrough of the house is just a pop by. And they'll just go through, take the notes, say, great, let's continue the conversation tomorrow after I've collected my notes and collected my thoughts at my office. And that's how they do it. That's how they do every listing. There's a lot of people that do that. It's just time, right? There's a part of me that says, no, I'd rather just knock it all out there in the living room or at the kitchen table, get the signature and move on, right? Yeah.
So being brand new in this world, I'm conflicted with a couple stats. It was 80% that I'm making that up. I don't remember specifically.
Don't worry, 80% of stats are made up on the spot.
Absolutely. I thought it was 78.2.
There you go.
Anyway, if the majority only list with that first agent that they talk to, and you've got that on your side, I heard you say, both people aren't there. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to make that connection, and maybe I'm that first one. I get where you're coming because I don't want to have to go back out if I don't have to. But to me, it seems like any opportunity to have that conversation, even if you can't walk out with a done deal signed, you've got the stats behind to back up that chances are that you'll end up being able to have that. Whereas my schedule, their schedule doesn't work for a week. Somebody else, oh, I forgot my buddy was an agent. Right. I'm just kind of curious.
Well, and you're spot on. If I'm rescheduling it, I'm going to ask, first of all, when, like, am I rescheduling for like 2 weeks? Then yeah, I'm going to get back in, I'm going to get in there. I don't want to default it or push it 2 weeks. If it's just like pushing it a few hours or just to the next day, that's what I'm going to do. But I am going to ask that question too. Hey, are you interviewing more than one agent? And a lot of agents hate to ask that question because they think it's going to plant the seed in their head that they should be interviewing more than one agent. but ask it. I promise you, it's better to know if you're competing than just to go in oblivious. And a lot of time, and you'll have people that say, no, actually, I was just going to interview you, but should I be interviewing more than one? And I'll tell them, no, unless you want to waste your time, because I'm so dang good, you're just wasting your time. We're going to do this, or whatever joke you want to make about it. But ask that question, because it is a different meeting if I know I'm competing against Micah or if I've got it in the bag, right? Yeah.
What do you think about the one-legger, so to speak, and getting signatures on the ERS and say, hey, if everything sounds good with your husband, we'll just go ahead and email that tonight and he can sign it on DocuSign.
It's risky. It's what Bryson was saying too, is they might not be on the same page. They're now regurgitating your whole conversation to them. If that's the best way I can do it, because you'll also have people that are like, oh, they don't live in you've got folks that have a spouse that literally works in another state or commutes to California. So that stuff does come up. And if that's the case, I'll split the conversation in half, like I talked about, where I'll do the walkthrough on the house. And then I'll say, hey, let's actually all jump on a Zoom call if we have to. I've done listing presentations on a Zoom call where we say, hey, let's just go through the listing presentation in the packet and develop our plan on Zoom just so I can get both of them there. I've had that happen a couple times where people are out of state. I had an investor that owned property here in Utah, doesn't even live in Utah. So I ran out, the tenants let me in, I made my notes, I got it all together, came back to the office, did a listing presentation on Zoom with them, put the plan in place, DocuSign signatures, off to the races. Yeah. Yeah, Julie. Yeah, sounds wonderful. Do you guys hear a question? So Julie just asked, how do you create urgency without sounding pushy? And there's a really easy answer to that. What's their motivation? What's their motivation? What's their motivation? So anytime that you want to create some urgency, you go back to their motivation. And so if it is, there's a ton of scenarios that I'm thinking, in my head, but ultimately you also don't need to create urgency. I will let the market create urgency in terms of, especially this time of year, if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about listing in June, I really want to know why. Like, what is that motivation? Is there any chance we can't just grab that April, May rush instead? Statistically, if we look at stats and all those things, it tells us there's going to be more buyers out in the market. Yes, there's more competition, there's more inventory, but there's a lot more buyers that are trying to time the school season or whatever it might be. So if we can increase that, let's do it. But I'm going to go to motivation and talk through it. Yeah, it's a good question. What else? Any other questions? So let's keep going this. Confirm the appointment. Adopt a yes mindset, right? You got to get in your game. Enter the tour, begin the conversation, uncover and prioritize need, check for commitment, handle object. Okay, let's go into these. I'm going to do this. This is where we're going to leave the book for a second. Turn to page, because before we do it, turn to page 64. 64. I really do like underscoring this principle. You'll notice it says the 3 questions deep. Oftentimes we're too quick to ask a question and then just leave it. So when I'm talking to people, about this, especially about motivation, and they say, yeah, we're moving because we need to increase our space. I'm going to ask, role play with me, Graydon here. You want to upgrade your house. Why? Right? I'm going to go a little deeper. You're moving because you want more space. Why is that important to you?
I've got a own family. We expect to have more kids.
You're having more kids. Awesome. What would happen if your home didn't sell? Is that even an option to stay in this home?
We thought about that a little bit. We love the neighborhood. Maybe we just couldn't sell it. We remodel, maybe add a couple bedrooms.
Right. So you would consider remodeling the home if it didn't sell.
Yeah.
But your first pick is to sell. Yeah. Right. And where would you move to? Would you stay in this neighborhood? Do you like it? Is there
just anywhere in Utah County, really?
Anywhere in Utah County? Is school district important to you?
I would check out the schools, but I don't have any in mind.
Okay. Is there anything other? He's too broad on this. But notice I'm going to keep going. I can keep role playing this, but I'm going to keep going specifically. I'm going to get, well, in that new house, are there specific needs that you need in that house that aren't here? And I'm going to find out what that is. And if it's, well, more than space, I actually have always wanted a master suite that has the tub shower separate because I hate standing in my tub in the shower. I'm going to uncover stuff that deep so that if I ever need to push on things or have hard conversations on, hey, it smells a little bit in here, I can say, look, are you going to let the cat litter box be the one thing that prevents you from getting that tub shower separate so you're not showering in your tub anymore? And you can make little jokes like that, but there's a lot of truth to there of just always bringing that back to motivation. But I need to have clarity, and I like to go really deep into my questions to really find out, why is that important to you? I want more space. Okay, but why? Like, why do you want more space? Well, my kids are in bunk beds, and I have a boy and a girl sharing a room, and they're getting to that age where my girl just needs her privacy. Totally makes sense. I want to know that. I want to know why that's important to them. Why I'm moving because of the school district. Ooh, tell me about that. Why is the school district important? Well, I have a kid with special needs. Or I have a kid that's really like smart and I want him to be in a Chinese immersion program. Holy smokes, tell me about that. Like, I want to get that into their motivation for moving, right? There's some examples here on going 3 questions deep. And then finally, the needs analysis, getting real clear on time frame, concerns, what are people's fears about going through this process. I want to uncover all of these things. Number 6, page 66, we're going to check for commitment along the way. I want to do a handful of soft closes throughout the process. And so, well, we'll do some examples of that when we do the role play. And then finally, I want to handle objections. Number 7, page 67. And I want to underscore this point. As you're in this presentation, too often as agents, we think that questions are objections. For example, Amy, how much do you charge for commission? Is that an objection or a question? But a lot of you will prickle and be like, oh my gosh, they think I charge too much. This is totally an objection. But no, they're literally just asking, how much do you charge for commission? So for you to say, I charge 3% and I recommend that you offer another 3% to a buyer's agent over the MLS. Do you have any other questions? And I promise you, a lot of people will just say, no, that's great. That's what I was asking. But too often we have the good old fashioned limiting beliefs, number 5 over here, where we have that little drunk monkey in our head that wants to tell us that these questions that, oh my gosh, they're concerned about commissions. It's actually a big issue. And you end up going down a little of a rabbit hole because you've got that negative voice in your head. We all have it, right? And so I like underscoring that, be calm, be logical. Sometimes they're not actually objections. If they are objections, give the answer, provide it, close it. This is why knowing your scripts are good. And then don't get attached to the outcome. It's interesting, if somebody just simply, you've handled it. There are some people out there that just really are dead set on using a discounter. And you might say, yeah, I'm not going to work for free. It's not a right fit for me. Be okay with not taking every single listing. Some might just not be a fit. You might have somebody where you realize this person's actually a jerk. This has happened to me before where I'm like, you know what? This person is just too cheap. Everything we're talking about, they want to sweep stuff under the rug, or they want to be cheap. They want to nickel and dime me. I just don't know if this is the right fit for me. I've had that. And it's hard in your business when sometimes it's like, oh, but I'll do anything to get a listing. Yeah, right now it's all about getting listings, but don't put yourself in a position where you have a contract with a jerk. If you get, ladies, if you meet somebody and there's any harassment of any kind, or you feel like, hey, this dude's a little creepy, listen to that voice. There's enough problems in this industry already. Listen to that little voice and make sure that you're being safe, because you will interact with jerks and creeps. Sorry, there's another soapbox for you. You can tell some of the stuff we deal with as associate brokers in this office. There are a lot of weirdos out there, even right here in Utah County. Okay, so objection handlers, we're gonna go through that. And then number 8 is the plan, right? Page 69, we're gonna set the expectations. We're gonna lay out the plan, and we want a win-win agreement. And then we go through the process. And then finally, page 70, we're gonna negotiate and resolve issues. And then we're going to close, and we're going to get the agreement signed. Okay, you guys ready to go through this? That was the skeleton. All right, where are we? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to deviate a little bit. So the listing presentation, just like the pre-listing packet, can be found, if you don't have one already made, can be found on in Command, right, in Designs. And so you can go and create one. Somebody asked me on the break, is my pre-listing packet the same as my listing packet? Yes, it is actually. It's literally the same thing. Because again, I'm more in consultative mode when I'm there, but I'm going to bring it. Even though I've emailed it, even if I end up physically sending a copy, I'm still going to show up to that appointment with it printed out and have it ready to go and have it to reference, especially if they're dog-gated or they didn't get my email, whatever. I'm coming prepared, whether they've read it or not, I'm going to launch into this thing, right? And so what I have here is mine. It's a little different than other people's. And that's okay. I want you guys to formulate yours. The model again is that you have the consultation presentation, but the fun part of this business is you get to figure out your unique value proposition and how you want to go about this process. There's a lot of people that have like a niche in their listing services. You know, maybe they do something very specific. Maybe they are just a discounter. We actually have KW agents that their value proposition is just being cheap. They list houses for 1.5%, and that's their gig. That's their thing. I have chosen to be the opposite. My goal in this business is that I'm the LeBron James of listings. And when professional people that respect and appreciate professional services can see the value that hiring the best yields the best in their pocket, they call Clay. That's my ultimate goal. I don't want to be the cheap guy. There's a race to the bottom. That's the Walmarts. Everyone's undercutting everyone. There's a race to the bottom. But people forget too, there's a race to the top. Starbucks won that race years ago when they came out with $5 cups of coffee and everyone said, the company out of Seattle is crazy. But Starbucks said, heck no, we're going to make the best dang coffee on earth. And look at what Starbucks became. And they have $6 cups of coffee. It's crazy, right? And so there is a race to the top in our industry the same way. And sadly, there's not a lot, right? But I'm inviting you, and we're teaching that here at KW, that KW wants to support those people that are racing to being the most valuable agents, not the cheap agents, right? That's why we're here. No cheap agents. If you're a cheap agent, get out. Just kidding. Okay, so I haven't done, well, we'll go through this. So there was a layout, little thing here that showed, going back now. Can't remember what page it's on. Doesn't matter. It lays out the actual physical what you're doing. I'll just describe it. I show up to the house. I knock on the door. They open the door. I greet them. You guys all get this. But right there in the doorway, I set the expectations for the meeting. So thank you for meeting. I'm glad to be here. The goal for me to be here are really just a couple of things. The first thing I want to do with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is I want to see your home. I want to take some notes, and I want to talk about the condition of your home for two reasons. First of all, I want to identify what the price of your home is, right? And I want to do that by seeing it and seeing what the best comparables are. But the second reason why I want to look at the condition of your home is I want to see if there's flip potential. Is there anything we should do to your home that will yield us more money than the cost of doing it? Are you leaving money on the table essentially? So let's go through. I want you to talk to me about repairs, updates, things you've done, things you've thought about doing. I want to look at all of that so we can answer those questions. The next thing I want to do while I'm here is I want to sit down at your kitchen table and let's put a plan together. And then after we have that plan, let's figure out realistically what we think we can sell the home for. And if all of that sounds good, are you prepared to sign the agreement with me and move forward with selling your home? Did you guys catch that last line? That is called a soft close. And I say that right at the doorstep, assuming that the condition's good and the price is good and the marketing plan, are you ready to move forward? And sometimes right there in the doorstep, they'll say, well, actually, no, because we're meeting with those other agents that we told you about. Oh, okay, that's fine. I want to know that. Or actually, we don't know if we want to sell because I want to immediately right at the get just say, is this our plan or not? Most of the time, I've already asked enough questions. They'll say, yeah, if everything is good, we want to move forward. Let's figure out the timetable. Let's move forward. And I'll say, great, let's start with the tour, right? But sometimes I want to know real quick if there's like things that are going to blindside me. I want to know right there at the doorway, right? But let's assume everything is good. They say, yep, come on in. We're good. That sounds like a good plan. I'll say, great, let's start with the tour. So I'm going to walk into the kitchen table. I'm going to say, can I leave my packet here on the kitchen table? Because we're going to come back to it. This tour is called kitchen, tour, kitchen. That's what it says in the book, within the page I was trying to find it. My goal is to have the consultation at the kitchen, not in the living room. Why? Because decisions are made at the kitchen table. That's how we are in life, right? So I like doing the kitchen table. That's where business happens, not in the living room. So I'm going to go on this tour. Now, do I want the people with me on the tour or not with me on the tour? Do I want the seller to join me on the tour, or will I actually say, no, you guys hang tight in the kitchen. I'm going to run through the house so I can see it in the eyes of a buyer, because you're not going to be here when buyers walk through the house. I'm going to go look at it on my own, and then I'll come back to you and we can review my notes. Or, hey, will you join me? Let's show me your house. Show it off to me. Show it off to me. Which one's better? With me? Yes, I'm so glad I got somebody questioning. Yeah, speak loud.
So if they're a high I, they want to tell you about their house. They want to give all the special things. They want to tell you all the cool little things. If they're a high D, they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a time in my career, and I still kind of use this judgment. We said it depends. There are some people where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hurry here, especially if it's renters, whatever. I'm going to hurry here. And it's actually for my own sake of time. I want to run through this. This is pretty vanilla. Like, there's not a lot to it. If it's an edge condo, I've seen a gazillion of them. All I need to do is look under your sinks and see if you have a leak. Everything else, I know every square inch of that condo, right? I already know the upgrade packages, whatever they pick, that's the tote package. That's what, there's some stuff that you don't need to do all that. But you've got a good point. A lot of times I do select to have them come with me. And I do that for two reasons. First of all, especially single family homes over condos and townhomes, people don't get to show off their home very often. And this is like their one shot where they actually have a real estate professional in their home that can appreciate all the little Pinterest things that they've done to their home. And I want to honor that experience and let them show it off. But you just got to be cautious, because otherwise you'll end up with two little old ladies that take 2.5 hours yammering away. And next thing you know, you don't even get that listing. Right. And so you'd be a little cautious. I did err on the wrong side for exactly what you said. I had a listing appointment about 4 years ago where I went in, and this lady was a talker. And so when I was preparing for this, I knew that she was that high I. I thought, I'm going to be here all night if I let her do the tour. And so I decided when I came in, I'm say, hey, I want to see your house through the lens of a buyer. So I don't want you to come with me. I want to just go look at it, and then I'll come back to the kitchen table and we can review it. So I ran through the house, got back there, and she was very deflated. I could tell. And she said, okay, so did you see what I did in this room? Yeah, I saw it. Well, did you see that I did in this room? Oh, no, I didn't. Did you see? And we ended up like it was awkward, because she clearly was excited to show me the house, and I took that away from her. And it really kind of ruined the energy, because she kept going back to that. Well, what about the whatever? Can I just show you? And she ended up literally taking me, did you see this? And I realized, man, it didn't go. I actually didn't end up getting that listing at that appointment. Luckily, I picked it up 6 months later. But trust me, like, I did it right the last time. And I've thought about that. Even though somebody might be a talker, give them that chance to show it. The other reason that I recommend taking them on the tour is I start to deliver this presentation as we're walking. And I can build that relationship of trust by asking them those questions. So as I start this tour and we're looking at stuff, I'm asking questions, again, recapping what I've already asked them. So this is the chance where you start recapping the questions. So I'm walking. So tell me again, where are you moving? Why are you moving? What's your motivation on that? What's your timetable? Do we have time to do any repairs? Things like that. When I'm walking through in condition, I'm going to explain to them, in preparation to sell your home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want you to follow the 3 Ds. The first D is I want you to depersonalize your house. So all the big family photos, all of that, I want you to swap that. I want you to turn your home into a house, right? That's a psychological process. And the first step to do that is to depersonalize your house. The second D is deep clean. I want this house clean and sparkly. I want to be able to eat off your floors. It's so clean when we go to sell this. And the final D, and I always pause and I want them to fill in the blank. The final D is declutter, declutter, declutter. So most important thing, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is I want this house decluttered. And everybody has clutter. And so that could be from the magnets on the fridge to the pile of boxes in the corner. So as I'm walking through the house, I'm looking for repairs. I'm looking for some little staging tips. I usually will walk into a bedroom and say, hey, it's a little heavy on stuff in here. Let's reduce it. And I'll always remind people, you've watched HGTV or you've walked through a model home. Our goal here is to create your home to look like a model home. So for example, in bedrooms, I want to reduce, have a nightstand, have your bed, have maybe a dresser, and that's it. I don't want more stuff. I don't, I want to reduce it. I'll remind people I want to move as much stuff into the garage as possible because garages don't sell homes. The priority list is number one, curb appeal, right? I want to have a good looking house for that exterior photo that's on the front page of the MLS and every listing. The second most valuable spot is the kitchen. Third are bathrooms. And then we get into the master suite and living rooms. And far down the list is the garage. Right? So, and I'll tell people that. And I'll say the most important things again is the front of the house and the kitchen. So I called out the runway, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. From the car door of those buyers when they're getting out of their car to your kitchen sink is that runway. So if I call you and I say, we're going to have a showing in 20 minutes and you only have one space that you can clean and prep for that showing, it's going to be the runway. Clear down to your front door has paint chips on it. I want you to paint your front door. I make a lot of my sellers paint their front door, fix their doorbell, clean up their porch because I want that runway looking sharp. Most buyers, and you guys can validate this, when you're out with your buyers, most buyers know by the time they've walked the runway and they're at the kitchen sink, they know if they're going to make an offer or not. They already have seen everything online. They've seen everything. They just want to get the warm and fuzzies of, hey, I'm here and it's validating what I already thought. This feels cool. I can see myself hosting here. I can see myself living here, and they know that at kitchen sink. And then it's just a matter of, let's just go make sure the bedrooms feel and look as good as it did online and just check off that box, right? And then I always remind my sellers, the kitchen is so important because that's usually where the big question gets asked. Any good buyer's agent's going to show the home, bring him back to the kitchen, and that's where they're going to pop the question, Micah, do you want to write an offer on this home? Is this your home? Should we pursue it? That question is going to happen in the kitchen. Unless you see a Nest camera, then you're going to step out to the curb and you're going to ask them there on the curb. So let's talk about cameras. You tell people to take down their cameras or leave them on. No, you do not. We're in a state you can record people without their permission. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, by the way. Yeah. It's hard because I get it. Cameras will provide safety. A lot of people like it. Your home's on the market, especially have an open house, a bunch of people coming over. Cameras could be nice. However, I do remind my sellers, put yourself in a buyer's shoes. It does feel a little awkward and a little hard to fall in love with a home if you feel like you're being watched. So if you do have, hide them, do them discreet. But when you've got that camera, especially in the kitchen, it's like the kitchen's where I want them to have an emotional conversation with their buyer's agent about making the offer. And they're not going to get very emotional or open up if they're staring at a Nest camera sitting on your shelf or something, right? So I usually will tell people, hey, on this walkthrough, we need to maybe take down some of these cameras or let's make them a little more discreet because it does make buyers feel a little uncomfortable when we do that. Back to the depersonalizing. I'm going to tell my folks, I'm going to look for things, not just personalized like pictures of themselves, but I'm going to look for hobby pictures as well. The big one we have here in Utah County is we have lots and lots and lots of Jesus, right? And you will walk into homes. I've been in homes now a couple of times where I've had to have you have too much Jesus conversation. I don't know how to say it without sounding like an antichrist. But I was in a listing a few years back where I was standing in their living room kitchen and I counted 14 different pictures of Christ in some fashion just in that space. I mean, it was like everywhere. It sounds really bad. I love Jesus, you guys. But I did have that moment where I thought it's a little weird. It was a little too much. And so I had to bring it up and say, hey, remember, everybody loves vanilla ice cream, right? We all love vanilla. It's kind of the same thing in the house. We want to appeal to as many people as possible. And so we need to depersonalize the house. And so I would recommend that we tone it down and we reduce Jesus a little bit. And so it was kind of awkward, but they totally understood it too. It was one of those where they were like, all right, we get it. Like, yeah, we'll kind of take it down. They still left up a few, which was fine, but we had to I always use the example. We need to make it look like a model home. If you walked into a Richmond American home or an Edge home, Like, how much Jesus are they going to have the walls? They're not going to have any, right? Because they want to appeal to everybody. But you are still living here. I get it. It's fine to have that. But again, in a perfect world, we are a model home. So we are very abstract, boring art. But art that looks nice, that accentuates the color schemes and the design of your home. But we want to take down the same thing with hobbies. If somebody's got a big Biden flag or a Trump flag, I'm probably going to address the political stuff and say, just don't go there. Now, if somebody has cool stuff, like they've got a cool Lego room or something, that's okay. And I'll talk to people and I'll tell them my experience with my buyers is usually you label houses, right? This was the stinky dog house. I don't want you to be that house. That was the radical, everything was Trump house, whatever. This was the, but there's also some good things on, hey, this was the really pretty cottage house or cozy house. Like, I want people to label your house, or if there's a cool Lego display, sure, that was the Lego house. I love Legos, you guys, so I'm all about that. But that's a cool Lego house. Like, that's a positive thing. I just don't want something too radical to stand out. Yeah.
What's your guidance on taxidermy? Yeah, I was gonna say.
That is a good question, and I get it a lot. Back to 2 days ago, that house that I walked through, there were at least 40 dead animals. I am not exaggerating. The garage alone had a dozen in the garage. They were big too. And so I did bring it up and I talked about, hey, we want to neutralize, we want to look like a model home. And I said, I would prefer that all of them, maybe a couple of them stay, but we need to get all of these in a storage unit. It's a hard one though, because as a lot of things, some people are gonna get really offended by some of that stuff. The majority of people won't care, and then there'll be a few people that love it. Oh, I want to be in the hunter's house because I'm a hunter, right? And so it is an element of finding that middle ground. But taxidermy is, yeah, some of it can really bother some people. When you've got stuffed bears and all kinds of stuff, some people get they won't even, they will stop looking at the house. And I remind people, the purpose of neutralizing the house or depersonalizing, right? The first D. The purpose is I want people to focus on your house, not your stuff, right? We're here to show the house, not your stuff. That's why we're doing this. The best example that I have is when I was showing my own brother a house. My brother's an optometrist in Tooele. He's a doctor, and we walked into a house, and right when he opened up the front door, there was a big picture of the homeowner's family. And he looked at that picture right at the beginning, and he said, holy smokes, this is a doctor I work with. And I just forgot his name now. Doctor, doesn't matter. So he says, this is a doctor, like, that's crazy. Like, cool, okay, no big deal. Well, it was a big deal, because I'm not making this story up. We walk to the master bedroom. We're looking at the house. We get to the master bedroom, and my brother stops. I say, what's up? And he says, I just don't feel comfortable, Weber, that's it, going into Dr. Weber's master bedroom. And I thought, ooh, I don't blame you. You like work with this guy and you're about to, we walked in, I'm like, well, he's selling his house. Like, he would love for you to buy it, right? So we walked in, but that was a great illustration of, was my brother really thinking about the house at that moment? No, he was so distracted. And did my brother buy that house? No. And I'm not saying it was because of that, but it was a distracting showing. And so I'll even relay this story to some of my sellers and say, hey, like, I don't know if we want people to come through and get distracted by who's in the family. Oh, I went to high school with this person, or I did this or that, because it derails the whole showing process. Yeah.
The moral of it is you want to just downgrade a lot of that stuff. Like, be like a model home.
Yeah, reduce is usually the term, or neutralize.
Like Jesus, you could have, one picture, or just, it's kind of like any pictures of the family, right? Maybe you could have one little picture to the side, but the point is tone everything down, right? It's not.
And focus on the priority list that I just rattled off. If the front door opens up to that family picture, 100% that's got to go. That's part of the runway. I want that runway to be the best experience. If it's down in the basement, the big family picture, yeah, I don't really care. Basement, the what?
Antler.
Yeah, the antler collection, the taxidermy stuff. If it's down in the basement, I'm not quite as concerned as you open up the front door and there's like the bear they shot in Alaska. Like, yeah, we got to do something. We've got to. I'm gonna have that hard conversation, right? Yeah.
How about completely vacant? The benefits of a completely vacant home walking through, or order house. There's too much stuff, and then there's the well staged. Obviously, you want the well staged, but There's varying levels.
Yes, Graydon brings up the golden question. Let's talk about staging. When I'm going through this, the goal is a perfectly staged home. I had a listing just a few years ago right down the street in Orem. They're good friends of mine. And it was one of the hardest conversations because I was like really good friends with these guys. I had never been to their home though, which was ironic. And I walk in and it was like trails through crap. We've all seen those homes or heard about these homes. It was like legit something off TV. I had no idea. They had a ton of kids. We had like the whole listing conversation for like an hour before I realized that right next to me on the couch was a kid. There was so much stuff on the couch. This little kid was like in all of it. And so like an hour into our conversation, it was like, Mommy, I want a drink. And it scared me. I thought, there's a kid sitting like 3 feet from me. I didn't even know that kid was there because it was in like a pile of laundry. It was rough. And I realized walking through, and these are like really good people, and they had a really cool opportunity to buy a home from a family member. It was really expensive. So it was really important that they maximize every dollar out of this house. And so I had to just have the courage to tell them, I had to have the hard conversation, what you're talking about, saying, hey guys, I think the best thing for us is you guys need to move out. I said, what do you mean move out? And I said, you've got a lot of kids. They had like 2 dogs. I just said, look, we've got to get this looking like a model home if you really want to get as much money as possible. So what's more important, being inconvenienced a little bit and making a lot of money, or potentially leaving money on the table for convenience? And they said, we'll get inconvenient if that means we can make more money. And I said, I promise you, if you move out of this, go find somewhere to sleep. And I only need a couple of weeks in this market. And this was 3 years ago. I only need a couple of weeks because we can time it so you can close on the new home. I said, if you can go find a temporary stay, and then we literally move everything into a storage unit, and then I want to paint it, and we have to replace all the carpet. You know, a house like that, like we're not washing that carpet, we're replacing the carpet. I said, I promise you, if you do that, it's like a flip. You guys will make a lot more money. And I was so grateful because they did it. They packed up, they found a place to stay. They moved everything out. I gave them the contact info for my handyman. They painted the whole house. It was a different house, and it was multiple offers, and it sold for even above my CMA. And thank goodness. And they loved it. And they were so grateful that I told them, get out of the house. And it really wasn't any more inconvenient for them to move out than if they were there with their 4 kids, 2 dogs, and I'm trying to do open houses and showing, tiptoeing through their crap. You got to be willing to have those conversations.
So a completely vacant home, is that the best way to show it?
All right, so let's have the staging conversation. Yeah, so now I've got an empty home. Do I spend the money to stage it? So this is one of those questions, and you guys are going to hear me say this a lot. When people ask me, do I stage my home? Do I finish my basement? The backyard's not finished. Should I landscape my backyard? When people ask questions like that, should I update, my countertop? Should I do that? What's the right answer to those things? When somebody asks you, should I stage my home or not? Is the answer yes or no? Should I finish my basement or
A lot
not?
of times staging means I'm going to stage it with my stuff and make it look nice. And
Yeah, it
that's
could be if they have
free
nice
way,
stuff.
That's the best way. But yeah, there's staging companies.
Say it's an investor. I just flipped this house. It's all done, but do I stage it or not? Or do I, the basement is always a good one, right? Because basements, do you finish the basement or not when you're about to sell the home? Yes or no? Okay, so that's what I'm fishing for. The answer is, what do the comps say? What do the comps say? Are you going to sell a $2 million home right now not staged? Absolutely not. Every big luxury home, not only is staged, usually the furniture is included. That is how the luxury market works. Rarely do you see a Park City fancy home or an Alpine home sell without the furniture included. That is like standard. Now, a little edge condo right over here in Vineyard. Do I care if that thing is staged? Heck no, it's going to sell no matter what. It could be a hoarder's house, it'll still sell. You had a question or a comment? Well, but you're barking up what I'm going to finish with too, which is staging. I also lean to, I would err on encouraging staging over an empty house. There is multiple stats that Gary has showed up, that the office showed up, that staged homes do yield more money than unstaged homes. And your sellers need to know that. I think the bottom of the market, yeah, probably not so much. But when we're talking about just normal single family homes, staging absolutely helps. That's why builders have their model homes. You have to show how that space works.
And if it's a newer home, I think you're okay not staging it. If everything looks pristine, but if you have a home that's been and you show how comfortable and cozy this house will be, always yields more money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I've noticed the complete vacant homes show more flaws.
bingo. Well, and people aren't very creative. It's hard to have a vision. And so usually when I'm walking through a home and there's, I don't want to call it awkward or weird space, but just space where you just can't quite see how to use it. But when they have their kitchen table in the space, the biggest example is when you walk into a bedroom that's empty, empty homes, empty rooms always feel smaller than they actually are. So when there's a tiny, teeny, tiny room, I almost always recommend we need to get a queen or a king size bed in here, because once there's a king or queen and they think, well, that's going to take up the whole room. No, it actually makes the room feel bigger when you have a big piece of furniture in it. Like there's some little strategies like that. So I generally do lean toward encouraging people to always stage it unless their stuff is garbage. Because we're in Utah County too, few people pay for staging. They're out there though, especially the higher price homes, they'll have the budget for it. But when you're in that 500 price point here in Utah County, people are cheap. And even though I'm like, look, it's literally only like $1,800 to stage a home for 2 months, you know, especially just main floor and maybe the master, it's not terribly expensive. Even still, people are like, well, maybe not. So usually the consultation is about, hey, this is great furniture. You've done a good job. Congratulations. Let's keep it. Let's use it. But if it's like the old lazy boy sofa that's 20 years old and the cats clawed the heck out of it, I'd rather have it gone and have an empty room than that thing sitting there. Yeah, please.
And tell me if this is wrong or overstepping, but once that listing's signed, they're going with me. So I've had this happen to me before. Should I do the bathroom? Should we update this? We want to do it. And then they go and pick stuff that's like, that's not, you know, and then I walk in after they've updated it. So I've learned to say, okay, this is, I feel like it's my project now too. They signed with me, we talked about everything. So now it's my reputation also. So I'm gonna be in charge of staging. If they're okay for me, that this is gonna work, I want to see everything done. So maybe that's the overstepping part.
No, not at all.
We committed that I'm gonna select house for a lot of money. We talked about
You are spot on. We're actually going to show a slide in here that's in my presentation where I talk about if there are repairs or updates or staging, I do want total control of it. Unless they're like a designer and know better than me, I'm either going to take control, and not that I'm a designer, but I at least know how to look at the comps and say, what do the comps tell us? All these great comps have finished basements, the crappy comps don't. Okay, we're going to finish some of the basement. Or every single great comp on your list has updated the countertops to a hard surface and you're still Formica. Let's go drop $2,000 and get some new countertops put in here, but let's pick them good. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I got a question. So when we're talking about staging or fixing or repairs or changing the property, in the end, the seller is the one who's gonna make that decision, right? Because you tell them and offer advice, but what if they say, we don't have the budget or we don't want to spend this money? Like, can we step in and do something about it, or just go with what they say? It's like, okay. Or they can say, you know what, I'm gonna paint the cabinets myself. And you're thinking, oh my God, what's my God?
Mary, I've got a better solution for you. We're going to do all of those repairs and they're not going to cost you a dime up front. I'm going to pay for all of those repairs and you're going to pay me back at closing. But I want control of the process. Fair deal? We're going to jump into that because this is a very common thing. You guys have heard the ready to sell that KW came out. I'm going to show you how I present that part of the conversation, because that's a tool that I promise you 99% of realtors don't even go there. They'll say, well, yeah, since you're paying for it, I guess you go pick it, you go do it. Call me when you're done with the repairs. That's like most realtors, right? They don't take control of that process. My invitation to you guys, what you're going to see is you need to adopt to actually be fully part of that process of saying, actually, I'm going to help you flip your own house. So we're going to partner up on this. We've got an agreement. I'm going to help you do it. I'll even pay for it. And you're going to pay me back at closing. And we can talk about how that works. Yeah.
Well, I think now, even with the ready to sell program, at least when I did
sell program that whole have the support of massive team staging or flipping, right? That's all the money, just like.
Yep. Yep. And we're going to talk about ready to sell. Go.
So just on staging, what are thoughts on digital staging? If it is a vacant home and is it worth spending the money on that?
I did it once for a builder, and that's the only time I've ever done it. The digital staging companies, I mean, it's fascinating because it looks completely real too. They are good at it. Those companies can go as far as like changing the carpet, changing the paint, changing all of that. I don't recommend that. I've seen a couple do it, and all you're doing is setting yourself up for failure, right? There's a lot of strategy in having your listings not give away everything and creating an experience where somebody does get hooked online. They like what they see. And then when they visit the house, they are pleasantly surprised, not let down when they walk into the house. And that's kind of the fear you go into when you like just do such amazing digital staging and all of this. And it's like, wow, look at this amazing home. And then they show up and they feel even slightly deceived. You've ruined that. There's potential to ruin that. I had a listing just, it was 2 years ago. It was one of my own properties that I had, and I sold it. My tenants had kind of trashed the house. So I got the house cleaned up, but my lawn was brown, like dead brown. And so I had Taylor Raymond, my photographer, who a lot of you guys know, he does a lot of photography here. I said, hey, will you just Photoshop make the grass green? I just want to see it. And so I had 2 photos, one with brown, one with green. And the green looked like amazing, right? This luscious green grass and all of that. But I thought, I'm going to have fun with this. So before I went live, I actually just did a social media and Instagram where I had both up next to each other. And I said, this is, and I had real and Photoshopped. And I said, if I were to advertise the Photoshop version, how would you respond? And it was like overwhelmingly, and I didn't even do it. I was just asking. People were like, you deceitful, you would be cheating, you would be like, people like murdered me. I thought, wow, like that's interesting, but that did influence me. I listed it and did not use the Photoshop photo. I put it up with the brown. That way there was no like people roll up and be like, what in the world? The grass is clearly dead. How did he get this photo? So I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah.
So I read somewhere that what somebody did is cleaning the grass. I mean, is that even legal? Can you do
I
that?
haven't,
And then you take the
I've heard of
grass.
that a lot actually, but I've actually never, have you done it? Yeah, do you buy it at Home Depot? It's like a green.
How do they put it? Yeah. And then you don't have to photo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I haven't done the spray paint grass, but I've done it on my own stuff that I've sold, and I've told people to. Fake plants can go outside, absolutely. Like to have a little garden, I'm like, oh, if this only had like a little flower bed, zip down to Walmart, buy some fake flowers and stick them in the dirt, totally okay. I've done that multiple times. What was that? Just like your grandma's house, but don't get your grandma's flower, these big, beautiful flowers in February. Like be smart with it. Usually it's a little grasses and a couple of bushes. Yeah.
Another thing kind of with staging is Becca does her own staging for listing clients. One thing we experimented with and worked really well is for like putting king size, queen size beds into rooms, like a couple fold out plastic tables with comforters and sheets and a bunch of pillows on top.
And air mattresses. Yep. And air mattresses. So if you guys want to do this, there's some agents that go as far as actually getting a little inventory. Usually it's a kitchen table, that couch, and some air mattresses, or something to do bedroom stuff. I have never done that. The best thing you can do is just find somebody that provides all that. Susie Clyde right here in our office is one that I recommend. Who else? Julie, you're doing staging. Like there's enough people here that have those businesses. Julie, raise your hand high. Everyone look at her, know who she is. That's your stager right there. Let's promote you, Julie. So if you guys have a home like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it. And I don't know the cost. The last quote I got from Susie Clyde was just a week ago, and she quoted me about $1,800. I had a brand new home that they were flipping. I just wanted the whole main level, and I think it was the master suite. She said, hey, you need to plan on about $1,800 for us to do that right. Like, great. So that's what I presented to my clients to do that. So yeah, I am an advocate for staging for sure. Yeah. Yep. Or I'll pay it, but you're paying me back at closing. Yeah. Yeah, because that's not part of my service. That's in addition to. Julie, yes. do you offer a consult for a fee where you're not going to provide staging, but for $150, $200, you'd go do a consult with somebody? Sweet. Because that's probably the solution for a lot of folks, is just soft staging or just a consult to go through and say, well, clean up the towels, clean up this or that. And because I'll remind people too, I'm not a designer. However, I walk through literally like thousands of homes a year, right? When we're all out and about. So I've seen the trends. I know it's going. And again, what are the comps saying? If the comps that are getting the best prices are the nice staged homes, like we need to do this, folks. Like we need to pay attention. Yeah.
A lot of times, it's an easier conversation to say, you walk into a beautiful hotel, what do you look for, right? Beautiful comforters, beautiful, linens, towels, right? And a lot of those things that even rugs, like if their decor is shabby, it's like spend money on, a few $1,000 maybe on things that you can take.
Totally.
You need any range, right?
Totally.
A big difference on staging the home.
Yeah, if you're buying new furniture for your next house, consider storing it right here in this house to show it off. Yeah, you bet. That's a great tip. Any other tips or comments? Yeah.
All landscaping comes with the house.
So yeah, there you go. I will give you a tip though. If you are asking the question, should I disclose this? The answer probably should be yes, but there's a time and a place to disclose it. So on a lot of the repairs or condition of the home, it is not the appropriate place to disclose it on the MLS. Hear me out. The appropriate place to disclose that is in the seller property condition disclosures. Too often people want to just, I want to do the right thing. I want to tell them about the water leak, this or that. And you'll see agents that put it like in the MLS listing, like, well, there was a water leak. It's like, yo, that your opportunity on the MLS is putting your best foot forward, right? You are showing off the home. You are drawing people in for the appointments. Once somebody is interested in the home, the appropriate place to disclose the painted grass would be in the seller property condition disclosures. And honestly, I probably would disclose that. The grass was painted. I'd probably again, the golden rule. I know that sounds really like primary again, but the golden rule, treat people how you want to be treated. Put yourself in the buyer's shoes. If somebody painted the grass and didn't tell me, is it the end of the world? No, but is it kind of like annoying? Yeah, like I would want them to say like, hey, by the way, like we spray painted the grass. All right, that's funny, like, okay, but at least I know now that I'm going to have to get that grass back to green or keep spray painting it. And I might say, where's your connection, and put that in the offer. I need you to leave me, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, a case of spray paint for the grass. Yeah, here's the color we use. At least give me that. Yeah.
For the record, pre-agent days.
Oh, sure. Hey, I think it's quite clever. I've just never done it. I do the fake flower crap. Yeah. Great question. She asked, do you put your seller disclosures on the MLS? The answer is, if I have clean seller disclosures, every time. And even if they're just slightly dirty, they're disclosing a few things, I'm still putting it on the MLS. If there's like a scary, hairy thing that I know we're going to have a conversation about, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and let them put the offer. Then I'm going to send it over unless they request it beforehand. But I want to cross that bridge. Now, also keep in mind, if there is something scary, hairy on the seller disclosures, I'm going to do everything in my power during this listing consultation in the pre-listing period to address it. I've gone as far as having homes inspected before we even go on the MLS so that I can provide an inspection report. When people are like, this is a really old home, we might get blindsided. I don't even know if there's mold. I don't even know if my grandkids smoked meth in here. Like, I don't know what we're dealing with this. No, really, that's like real conversations that you'll have. And like, there's a lot of unknowns here. I will absolutely say, well, you know what? Let's just get my inspector out here. It's only a few $100, $350, maybe $400. Let's actually inspect the home and let's get us a laundry list and say, okay, what things on here do we need to just knock out and address now so you make more money, right? There's nothing wrong with having an inspector do a pre-house inspection. Totally. Could you imagine an MLS listing where down where they have the attachment button in green, You click on that. There's an inspection report, the seller disclosures, invoices on the repairs they did, the warranties for the appliances. Like that'd be a perfect listing in my mind, right? So do it. You bet. Chase something like that. Yeah, warranty on that crap. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, if we hit that good enough, we're selling the walkthrough. Guys, we're role playing here. A couple of bunny trails there, but this is good, right? So we're going through the walkthrough. After the walkthrough, we're going to have our list made, right? We're going to do these repairs. We're going to stage it this way. We're going to call this contractor because we really need to replace that carpet or something. We're going to have a plan on the conditions when we go back to the kitchen table. Okay, are we all there? Is there any questions about the walkthrough? Right, we've addressed the smelly animal. We've had the hard conversations on a scale from 1 to 10. How honest can I be with you at 10? Great, we need to fix that leaking roof right there because that's really distracting. We need to diagnose that. We need to put this plan in place. No. You're absolutely right. It's really not a hard conversation. And if you tell people to expect it, that's kind of your value. There's an element of like part of what they're paying is for you to be the one that calls them out on certain things. Because again, the goal is to make as much money possible for the home. And I promise you, the discounters, they don't do walkthroughs like this. It's we send the photographer out and we throw it on the MLS for a few $100 and that's it. And that's the experience. And that's might be the right fit for some people. But a lot of people really get a lot of value of this consultation on condition because a few minor little tweaks of, hey, look at this comp that shot for the moon and got the moon. All they did was some paint, some carpet, and a couple of countertops. This was less than $10,000. They had a bidding war that sent them, they got 70 grand more than all the other comps because they did that. Why don't we repeat that process with you? So let's put 10 grand into this house. Oh, you don't have 10 grand? I've got a program for that. I'll manage everything. I'll get it all updated. I'll even pay for it. And you're going to pay me back at closing. Fair? Awesome. Let's do it. And that's the plan. And people will love you for that. That's the LeBron James real estate agent, not the, okay, we'll just sell it as is. You know, that's fine when there's potential for more. Questions, comments? Okay, so now I'm back to the kitchen table and I say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and I usually do this for the walkthrough. This is my like 30-second little deal. I say, there's 3 ingredients to selling a house. And everything we talk about is going to fall into one of these buckets. You've heard this before, you guys smirking about it. The 3 ingredients to sell a house. The first one is condition. And that's why we're doing this walkthrough right now. That's why we're talking about condition. The second ingredient is my job, and that's marketing and exposure. It's showings, it's getting people into the house, right? It's marketing. The third ingredient is pricing, right? It's making sure that we have an effective pricing strategy. If it shows well when people come by and we're getting people to come by because the marketing's done right and you're priced right, you will sell your home, and the market stats tell us you will sell it in 12 days. Okay, so everything we talked about is going to go into there. So we've talked about condition. Now let's jump into everything else. So I'm at the kitchen table. This is what is part of my pre-listing packet. And I'm going to kind of go slow. Sometimes I go real fast with people. Sometimes I go kind of slow. But a few years ago, I was attending a class, and it really talked about getting passionate and purposeful behind your mission statement. Everybody here, I'd invite you, have a mission statement. And that mission statement is the why. And if you guys ever seen Simon Sinek's TED Talk on the Golden Circle, there's no one talking. It's the most watched TED Talk of all time. Simon Sinek came out with a book called Finding Your Why? I actually think that's a different book. Start with Why. Is that the same Golden Circle book? He's incredible. And I'm just going to tell you in 2 seconds. I'll do it fast. But he essentially demonstrated the Golden Circle. And he talked about so many companies are very good on describing the what. An example, he uses computers, right? What do you sell? I sell computers. Okay, great. That's the what. Makes sense. And then more effective companies actually get into the how. So how do you build great computers? This is how we do it. This is, what it is and how we do it. But very, very, very few people get to the why they do it. And he uses Apple in the early days. Apple really took off big because their messaging got really good at the why, and that why was we want to change the status quo. They had ads that showed, you know, back in the 90s when we were all kids, the woman that had this big hammer and it had like this computer robot world, whatever, like made it look like this really oppressive, you know, manufacturing type world. And all she did was like throw this giant Thor hammer into the screen and it shattered. And then the Apple symbol came up and it said changing the status quo on computers. Like that was their ad. It didn't even show a computer in their ad, but it took off because Apple was going to be like the cool hip company that just changes how computing is done, because they were getting messaging on their why. Their why was to like change the boring world of Microsoft and Intel. Right? And they kind of wanted that. As real estate agents, what do? We sell real estate, right? Or we consult people, right? How do we do it? We do it through questions, diagnosing, doing all those things, but not often enough do we ever tell people why. When was the last time you sat in someone's living room and actually told them, or at least touched on it, on why you chose to be a realtor? Why are you doing this? And when I was in this class, and I realized, you know what, there's no difference between big companies and little old realtor me. And so early on, I decided, well, what is my why? And I have a mission statement. This is the long version, but the short version is what I said earlier, and that is my why in real estate is I have a goal and a passion about helping my friends and clients develop legacy wealth through real estate. So making great decisions on their real estate purchases and great decisions on their real estate sales will help them build that legacy wealth that can be generational through this. And I am passionate about it. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my goal here today really is to maximize your profit. At the end of the day, yeah, I want to make it easy and convenient for you. You know, I want to get you to from point A to point B, but really I want to make sure that you're maximizing your profits. So how are we going to do that? Whoops, wrong button. All right. So most of my conversation is around this silly little graph that I made up, but it works. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want you to understand that I have a menu of services. I'm not just the realtor that shows up here and says, okay, let's sell your house. Let's put up the sign. I'll bring you an offer and we'll sign it. Let's talk about all of the options. You'll hear radio ads for different things. You'll see billboards for different things. And guess what? Everything out there that you've heard, I provide it, and I probably provide it better. So let's go into them. If you want to sell your home so fast that it's like no time on the market, I've got a solution for it. But your net profit will be the lowest. If you want to sell right now, right this second, I will make you an offer, but it's going to be at a wholesale price because I've then got to turn around and sell it, or I've got to keep it as a rental. But if you need to be gone tomorrow, I will make you an offer on your house right now sitting here. But the proper way to do it on the instant offer is let's at least spend 2 weeks and I'll have you cashed out in about 2 weeks. You got to go figure out what that wholesale price is. Again, the price will be lower, but I can get you out of your home with an instant offer. How many ads have you seen on the side of the road that say, we pay cash for houses, or we buy ugly houses, or in a pinch, whatever? Like they're all over, right? So people have seen these. Guess what? I can do that for you. Ben, if you got to get out of your house tomorrow, let's figure that out. Let's get you that offer. Now, stop role play. How do I do that? Let me ask a better question. Who's our newest agent here? Who's been licensed like in a month? Well, pick on Ben again. You've had your license for less than a month, right? So yeah, week and a half. There you go. How does a new agent, week and a half in the business, how could you potentially offer a cash offer on a home? First of all, do you have, let's say we're at that 550 point. You have 550 sitting in a checking account that you could buy this person's home. That's a personal question, but no, right? Glad the answer is no. If it was yes, we'd all be like, oh, dude, cool. Why is that sitting in your account? Yeah, it's in her account. Sugar mama, that's the way to do it. So how might you be able to provide this? Bingo. Yep, bingo. So you've got investors. I promise every person in this room now has an investor that will buy this house. It's call me. And who am I going to call? My hard money guy. There is so much money in the market right now. That is like an investor's dream come true. They are door knocking. They are putting up their little we buy ugly houses signs everywhere around town. If you as an agent call them and said, hey, I've got somebody that wants to move in 2 weeks. They're willing to consider a lower price on their home because time is of the essence and they got to move. Are you interested and will you pay me a commission? They'll say, holy smokes, where do I write the check? How do I those are few and far between. There's a feeding frenzy for discounted houses, right? So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can make that happen. It might not necessarily be me buying your home, but it will be one of my investors. Everyone's got investors. I've got more investors knocking down my door than I want to even talk to, right? Everyone wants that deal. So that's easy, right? And I've got a little slide here if we need to flip to it. So if they say, actually, yeah, that's something that I want to do, I'll hurry and flip the page and I'll say, okay, here's how it works. I'll analyze your home. I'll figure it out. You don't have to do anything, right? If you're going to do that instant offer, you just get out of the house. Even if you leave all your crap, I'll do a trash out. I've got a company with their dump trucks. We'll trash it all out. All this. Now, by the way, I did this just last year. I was in a listing appointment. My mission companion that had 6 kids and 100 and something reptiles in a 3-bedroom house. 6 kids. Oh, and a dog, maybe 2 dogs. Yeah, this was bad. I mean, this was like, I shouldn't say that, but it was like, do I call DCFS on this? Like these kids were like, they had the triple bunk beds. All 6 kids were in one. No, there was the girl in one room. All the other kids were in one room. It was crazy. But when we were sitting there doing the appointment and I pulled this out and we had this conversation and I said, look, we can do a normal listing and get a little higher price. But it's going to take, and we've got to decide, like, if we sell as is, like, it was bad, like the snakes and the lizards and everything, like it stunk, all that. So I said, either A, we've got to move you out and get some home services like we talked about and actually get it remodeled and fixed up and go through that flipping process and like figure out, you guys got to go somewhere. Like I can't do showings with 8 people, a dog, and 100 lizards in this room and snakes and stuff. It's just not going to work. And so I said, look, it'll be way more convenient if we just go the instant offer. And he said, I am so glad you brought that up because I was really worried you were going to make me do all these repairs. And I have no money. I'm broke. That's why they were selling. He said, for you just to like make the instant offer, that gives me the cash I need to go buy. He ended up buying a little trailer out in Vernon. You guys ever heard of Vernon? Out in the middle of the desert? But that was his dream. They had a plan and it worked. And there was enough equity in the house that he could go pay cash for all of that stuff. It was a great solution. So we went through this process. So I flipped over and I said, okay, let's talk about this instant offer. How do we do it? You just leave it. I said, give me a couple of days. I'm going to analyze it. And I made him an offer. And I actually personally bought that with Taylor Frampton. Him and I pooled our money together. We bought it. He managed the flip and we flipped it. And it worked out well. But let's go back to this. This is like glitching around. Most people aren't going to care about this, right? Most people say, no, I don't want to leave money on the table. Time is, I'm willing to put in a little time to get that higher price. And I'll say, okay, well, are you willing to put eternity back on the table to make the absolute most amount of money to keep it? I will always in my listing presentation say, do you actually have to sell? Is there a chance that this makes more sense for us to actually have more of a property management conversation and figure out how can we get your next house or wherever you're headed to without you selling the home? I have had this conversation multiple out of a listing. It's a painful thing to do because I want to make money like anybody, but it's the right thing to do. Right? And so I'm sitting in a listing presentation just back here in January with a neighbor of mine who's in one of the Edge condos here in Vineyard. And he says, hey, I'm excited to sell it because we're building this house in Pleasant Grove and it's going to be done here in a few months. So I think we're ready to list it. And I sat there and I said, why do you have to list it? And he just assumed that that's what you have to do. He didn't even think about the opportunity to actually keep it and move forward. He said, well, I need the cash out. I said, well, why not just refinance it or do a HELOC? And I was like, how much cash do you actually need? And it wasn't very much. And so we talked through and I said, well, you've got a ton of equity. I said, how about you do a cash out refi, use the little bit of cash you need, but cash out enough that you actually go buy another condo like this, but keep this one as a rental. And his like mind was explaining, he's like, wait, you can actually do that? I was like, yeah, you could keep this as a rental, probably go buy another rental property and get into your new Pleasant Grove house. And he said, walk me through that. We pulled out a white sheet of paper. I pulled out a pencil and I started saying, okay, what do you owe on this house again? He told me. I was here with the CMA condo. We all know what those are selling for. You're going to get 350, 360. Let's do the math. He had like 200 grand equity, hardly owed anything on it. I said, okay, 200 grand. How much do you need for your house? Like, I only need like 30. dude, all right, 30 for that. Do you have any other debts you want to pay off here? No, okay, well, let's not take all the equity. We need to leave 20% in this condo. Let's take the rest of that. Why don't we buy another condo or townhome similar, and let's get the rental income coming from these to help subsidize this new house and get that payment to be a little softer because you've got income coming. And his mind's like blowing. And he said, absolutely. What do I need to do? I said, great, let's get you in touch with a HELOC lender and let's go through that process. And that's what we're doing. I'm not listing that condo, but I'm gonna go help him buy some investment properties. Right? It's the right conversation to have. Because again, what's my mission? Building legacy wealth. If I were to have just, because he would have listed with me, he wasn't interviewing anybody else. If I would have said, okay, this condo is great, we got to fix that one little thing, you're moving in 3 months, great, let's probably get it listed next month, let's get it going, we'll negotiate a little lease back so you can stay in the condo, you're ready to go, okay, sounds good, sign it. That could have been my conversation. He would have signed it, we would have sold that condo, I would have had a sale. But I didn't. I talked him out of listing with me. But it was genuinely because I would love for him to make a bunch of money, and he recognized it. The minute he recognized, like, holy cow, this guy like actually does get like really excited about helping people go buy rental properties, and he loved that idea, and that's what we're doing. You think I'm gonna have a client for life? You betcha, right? Like how would he, like, that's a relationship of trust that I'll have for years to come. Yeah.
I've talked myself out of listings all the time on that, but like you said, it is the right thing to do. And guess what? A lot of these people, not only do they become an investor, but then their friends become investors.
Totally.
Guess what? You start dealing with more and more great investors.
Well, and do you think when he has a conversation at some random party, when somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about buying, or I'm thinking about selling my house, do you think he's even going to hesitate referring me? Not at all. Like he is now one of my core advocates. He's going to shout my name from the rooftops because we just put together a plan that's going to make him a lot of money. Yeah, Stetson. Look at that big brain of yours. That's absolutely what I'm thinking. Because a young investor like that has 2 little condos, what's he going to be doing in 5 years? He will be 1031 exchanging into something big. And if that snowball gets bigger, before I know it, he's going to say, hey, I've got $1 million in equity in my rentals now. I'm ready for that warehouse. I'm ready for that multifamily. I'm ready for something big. And now I've got a few of my friends that are getting to that level, and it is awesome. When I've got my friends that are like, hey, I've got like $1 million across my 4 properties because of what happened here in 2020 and 2021. What should I do with it? And I say, congratulations. You can now get into the stuff with the really amazing cap rate, which is the commercial. So are we looking at warehouses? Are we going to go pick up one of these pads off Geneva? Like, ooh, that's fun. I've got some cousins right now. We're literally shopping warehouses down in Springville, and it's exciting. Like, they've got some equity. They've got equity in their houses. It's cool, for sure. But let's assume they say, nope, we've got to sell because we tried to get pre-approved, but Mike Brown, who stood up here, said that we do need the equity. Our debt to income ratio isn't quite right, and we have no cash. We need to just do the more traditional model. This is our starter home. We're selling it to move to the next home. We need to move that equity. Okay, fine, so be it. So I've got just what I'd call more the normal, the premier red sign listing, my listing, but there's still 2 ways to go about the listing. So as I'm doing the walkthrough, we just did the walkthrough, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We talked about what to do. We do those things. We do your staging that we talked about. You guys knock out the repairs. We're good to go. We can get this on the market in the next few weeks. You'll be sold and out of here in 2 months. Sound good? Great. Now, we already touched on this earlier. It's like, yikes, we do need to consider the carpet paint. We need to do those things. We're not just going to as is sell it. We actually need to consider getting some services done on the home. And KW is calling it now ready to sell. That's their terminology. I've been using just home services is my terminology. I've heard agents call it my concierge service, but this is like did not exist 2 or 3 years ago. Like nobody was even talking about this, but then a couple of realtors decided, and they were out of state, and Gary put them on stage. They decided that this would be like their one niche that would set them aside from their competition, and they exploded, just absolutely exploded. KW has seen it now continue to explode, where people are saying, hey, yeah, my home does need some repairs, but I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no time to manage those repairs. I just want the realtor to do it. They're taking off like crazy. And that's why KW International, like as the whole brokerage brand, has come out with their ready to sell program. And I'm not going to go into the details on that, but you guys need to know KW does have a service. It's up to $75,000, 0% interest rate for up to a year for somebody to fix up their home. I don't know, has anybody in the brokerage done it though? It only came out in January. Yeah, so I took the class. It's literally like 7 videos. It takes about an hour. It's nothing. It's not much of a class. You have to use their approved contractor, which for our office, we got Jeremy Eaton approved. He's Novali's son-in-law, who's an amazing handyman. He's a general contractor. He does basement finish. He does everything. So he's approved. Yeah. 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 So I have done this not through KW's program, but I've done this 3 times over the last 2 years when I instituted it, where I paid for it. And they paid me back. I did charge 10%, and I've got a little contract I can show you guys on how I do it, but I charge 10%, which isn't much. The most expensive one was like a $20,000 remodel. So I charged $2,000 to manage it. But when I say manage it, I kind of helped with some of the design conversation on like what to do. But then literally we turned it over to Jeremy, handyman, and I said, you take care of everything. Like he doesn't do carpet, but he took care of like hiring the carpet person and doing all of that. And we knocked it out of the park. And all 3 times I've done it, it absolutely was successful. Like it was clear as night and day that they made more money because we cleaned it up. No, but my contract says that I will lien the property if I have the ability to lien the property at any point if I feel like they might not end up listing with me. Yeah. So the fundamentals of how that worked, because again, I didn't go over 20 grand. One was like 12, one was 15, one was about 20. I kept all the invoices. I had all of that crystal clear, transparent, attached that to my contract. And I sent that to the title company when we were under contract and we were preparing to sell. And I said, hey, in addition to sending KW the commission dollars, you need to send me personally. And here's the invoices. It wasn't me personally, but it was an entity that I had, but you need to send a check for this amount. And it worked out that simple. Remember, title companies can distribute for anything. I've had people pay off cars at settlement. I've had them pay off their RC Willie accounts at settlement. Like title, that's what escrow is, right? They're the money people. So this is just one of those items. Does that make sense? So this is one of the services. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what are we doing here? Do we need home services? I'll go through home services, how it works. We can kind of talk through it, which we did. Rentals, here's how that works. If you guys want to rent it, I've got property manager right here in our office. I would give them Camille. Raise your hand, Camille. Camille is a property manager here at KW. I'd say here's Camille's information. She's the best in the business. She's in-house, so I can talk to her anytime. She'll tackle that and we'll keep it as a rental. Or we'll get into premier listing. So let's talk about that. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're ready to go. Your time frame, we want to be on the market here in the next couple of weeks. Like I said, the 3 ingredients, we've talked about condition. Your condition's good. So what's next? Marketing. So let's talk about marketing. So this is my marketing in a nutshell. And you guys hit me with questions if I go too fast. But Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I like to have the marketing conversation by analyzing this pie graph right here. The NAR, the National Association of Realtors, does a study every single year where they ask one really interesting question to all the buyers. They say, what was the source that you used to find the home that you ultimately bought? How did you hear about the home that you bought? And do this study. And it's no surprise that 52%, do I have a pointer on here? Oh, I do. 52% say they found the home themselves online, right? The second big piece of the pie is that the real estate agent informed them of the home. Maybe it was an alert. Maybe they found it and texted. Same thing I do every morning. They sent it to me and the real estate agent sent it to me. And then there's all these other ones. Believe it or not, yard sign open houses, friends and family, maybe it was a home builder. And like less than 1% is actually print, right? And I think everyone will nod their head and say that makes sense. So let's build a marketing plan that leaves no stone left unturned. Let's hit all of these. So that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing, 52%, right, is online. So my commitment to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is that your listing with professional photos, a really clever, witty, sexy description of your home, all of the details that are accurately portrayed will not just be on my website, but will be on every single website, app, whatever it might be that shows Utah homes for sale. All of them, not 100, not 300, all of them. So we're going to start with the national websites, national, international, your Zillow, your Realtor.com, your Trulia, you're on all of those. You're going to be on your local websites, your UtahRealEstate.com, your Orem Homes for Sale. If the home's in Orem, whatever it might be, there's literally countless. The next level is brokerages. I'm with Keller Williams, so you'll absolutely be on KW.com, but guess what? You'll be on Remax.com. You'll be on Coldwell Banker. You'll be on Century 21. You'll be on Redfin. You'll be on Compass. You'll be on them all. Right? All the brokerages. You're not just limited because I'm at KW, you're on all of them. And then finally, classified ads. What's our classified ad service here in Utah? KSL. And what's now beating KSL? Facebook Marketplace. Yep, you got it. You're going to be on both of those. Absolutely. And then the final part, the fifth part of the internet where you're going to be is the conversation part of the internet. And that is social media. But I'm going to need your help on that. I'll put it out on my platform, my stuff, but I want you to share it too. So as we go through this process, I'm going to send you a link. It's a very special link. It's the link I want you to share. If you're in like a neighborhood page or you've got a following on your Instagram, please share it. Help me in this effort. That's the one part that you can do. And I'll have it all ready for you. I'll even create some little graphics if you want. Whatever you need, I want you to share it. Will you do that for me? Awesome. So that way we cover the entire internet. Right? Now, timeout on role play. How do I do that? How can I possibly make a claim that you are on every single thing out there? Syndication. KW pays a lot of money. There's two things. So IDX, you guys need to understand the fundamentals of IDX. IDX is the internet data exchange or whatever it stands for. But for real estate, that's a big deal. And that is most MLSs, I think every single MLS at this point has an IDX option. And that's how companies like Zillow get their listings, right? They buy the IDX feed from our MLS. But in addition to the MLS's IDX relationships, KW has even more. So KW buys the IDX. That's why we're on KW.com or the app, whatever. But KW does have agreements with a lot of weird little niche websites that they actually pay and they syndicate our listings out to them as well. Like if you've heard of Proxio or the DuPont Registry, all these weird little niche websites, they actually get their data stream from KW. At least that's what I've been told. Yeah.
I'm a little curious, like when you go to like publish your listing and you click on the who you're going to syndicate with.
Yeah.
It only shows the like it's like Zillow and Homes, but in reality, does it still goes to like
Yes. Yeah, and I think those are examples because they have different levels of IDX apparently, but I think they've singled out those websites very specifically because those are the lawsuit websites. There is a huge sentiment of anti-Zillow. You guys are probably part of it. There's a lot of anti-Zillow because Zillow encroached into the brokerage space. They started buying houses with instant offers. There was a big fear for a long time that Zillow would literally just become a brokerage. And so now we've literally built our competitor by dealing with Zillow. So there was a big push about 4 or 5 years ago where agents, they had a whole big debate here on the Wasatch Front, the WFR MLS, where they said, we want the ability to say no to Zillow. We want it to go everywhere else, but we want to actively boycott Zillow and not send our listings there. And they made a motion, they passed it and said, yes, we will essentially give agents the ability to not send their listing to Zillow.
If you say no to those just 2 or 3 options that it allows you, it'll still go to the other.
I think one of the last option is I don't want it to go anywhere else. I only want it on UtahRealEstate.com. Why you want to do that? I don't know. Unless you're a commercial agent. That's the attitude of commercial agents. They don't list their crap anywhere.
Think about as clients, our clients have no beef with Zillow,
Bingo.
Realtor, or any of these.
Yep.
They want it everywhere.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it should.
Yeah, and that's the right attitude, in my opinion. Sure, I have beef with Zillow too. I don't want them to generate leads off of my listings and then sell me my own leads back and sell it 10 times and still expect me to pay the prices they want. You guys do understand that is Zillow's business model. It's your data that they're advertising to collect buyer inquiries, and then they are selling your own leads back to you. That's why Gary and KW is so fiercely loud about your listings, your leads. Like KW, when somebody inquires on your listing on KW.com, you get your lead. They don't reroute it and sell it to the agents. Coldwell Banker owns UtahHomes.com. That's like one of their biggest profit centers because they collect leads and they sell the leads back to Coldwell Banker agents. That's their business model, right? Or they collect a referral fee. That's what it's even more expensive. They collect a referral fee on it. So there's different models, but the KW model is your listing, your leads. That was a tangent. But what I will say to that is I believe that in order for me to be the best agent would be to give maximum exposure, right? That's why it kills me that commercial agents or commercial industry does not have that. It's like hard to find commercial listings. They hide them because they're obsessed with just double siding everything. And I don't understand why people haven't protested that and say, are you kidding me? If I'm going to pay you all this money, you need to be as loud as us residential realtors and get it everywhere, get it out there. Anyway, there's another soapbox. So media plan, social media plan, we kind of talked about that. And then if we go back to here, there's this. So Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I want to have a pretty listing sent out to all the agents. I do that through the MLS, that's utahrealestate.com. And I do one other little step, and that is I'll take a minute and I'll see any other realtors that are selling or have sold recently in your neighborhood. I'm going to drop them a quick email. I'm going to have a link to your listing, and I'm going to see if they have any leftover buyers. So I'm going to make sure that we hit the real estate agent really hard. I'm also going to stand up in front of about 100. Been about 150 lately. Shoni's been killing it at our team meetings at KW. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to present your house in front of all 150 agents at the Tuesday 11 o'clock KW team meeting. I really do tell my sellers that we do that. And you guys have been to team meetings. That's kind of a fun process that we do every week when we show off our listings. And then we have kind of everything else. It's down here. A coming soon just listed email. Open houses, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, actually still work. Chances are we're only going to be on the market 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. Remember, the average is 12 days. I'm not going to speak this way, by the way, if my purchase price is over 800. That's different. It takes months still to sell some of those. But if this is our 550 house, it's only going to be a week or two. So I want to do at least one, if not 2 or 3 open houses, all in that week, week and a half when we go to sell your house. Are you okay with that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? You're okay with that? All right. I want you out of the house. When you do that, go get some ice cream, take the kids, do whatever. I want you out of the house. I'm going to door knock your neighborhood. I'm going to pass out flyers in preparation for that open house. It's going to be off the hook cool when we do that open houses, because believe it or not, it's not a lot, but open houses still have about 6%. And then the sign. I like putting up a nice, pretty sign, but I want a simple, classy sign in front of your house. And I want there to be a QR code or at least a link for them to digitally get the information. And I do not do flyers. Do you want to know why I don't do flyers? First of all, they're just soggy and gross. Secondly, usually just all the neighbors grab it because they want to see the price, because they don't even care. They just want to know what you're selling for. But thirdly, I can't capture the leads. I can't do my job. I have no idea who and how many people grabbed flyers. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to digitally capture them. So when somebody calls on the sign, they'll get the information they want, but I capture their phone number, and it gives me and my team an opportunity to call them and invite them to come see the house and do the job of selling. I want them in your house. It's my job to schedule showing appointments and get people in that front door. So I want to have a good, effective sign that allows me to do that. And then finally, I do have Google pay-per-click ads for your house. I boost the posts on social media and actually put money behind that. Most agents don't put money behind PPC. I do. I pay for boosted posts. I pay for that on my individual listings on all of them. Now put my realtor hat on. These are actual listings, by the way. There's a condo I sold in Salt Lake. Again, just Facebook, but I boosted it, right? Instagram. Here's an ad we did, really cool to-be-built home, boosted it, flyers, all of that. But with my realtor hat on, obviously I want to sell this listing, but remember when we started this class, I don't want just one sale. I want how many? I want 3 to 4. So I want to pick up so many buyers. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by promoting your listings. It satisfies your seller and you go above and beyond for your listings, but you also pick up more buyer leads that might not be a right match for that house. Or if you already have a gazillion offers and they get priced out of it because of that, at least you picked up some unrepresented buyers and you can potentially go sell them some other houses, right? So it's worth it now to start putting marketing dollars behind your listings. And it's still shocking to me how many agents don't. They put it on the MLS, that's it. They don't do these things. Yes, I put it on KSL. Yes, I put it in Facebook Marketplace. Those are the only 2 places you have to manually do it. There is no IDX to classifieds. You have to manually put it in to both of those places. Mike, are you still doing Craigslist? Craigslist used to be like amazing. It was a gold mine of leads. Then it died. I think too much. Yeah, they took away, they ghosted all the links. So you couldn't have external links. And then after that, I think they got illegal stuff happening and Craigslist died. Oh, he built an empire on Craigslist. Yeah, it was crazy. Open house strategy, we talked about it. I'll kind of get into some of the details. Guys, we teach open house classes here at the brokerage that are awesome. Open houses, I was like totally poo-pooed open houses for a lot of my career because I did 1 or 2 open houses that nobody showed up to, but then I realized I just didn't do a good job. But when you market the neighborhood, get flyers out, get ads up, get loud about it, do some Facebook Lives, whatever, you'll get people in the door, and there's some great conversations that happen at open houses. New agents, if you want opportunities, talk to experienced agents that have listings that they can't personally sit and get open house opportunities that way. If you're in the office Facebook page, you'll see agents all the time that say, hey, I've got this new listing and I'm going out of town. Does somebody else want to hold the open house? Holy smokes, you guys jump on that. My early days of my career, that's how I fed myself, is eating the, I don't want to say eating the scraps, but it really was. It was like any opportunity I could help another agent. I was all about doing open houses, opening doors, all that kind of stuff. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we can get into the details, eye-catching yard signs, we do door knocking. Your listing is amplified through paid services. We have a lot of mobile marketing through that syndication, high quality professional photography. I'm not the realtor that's going to show up and just take pictures with my iPhone. I have a professional photographer that's going to shoot your home. Even down to my tiny little listings, I use a professional photographer always. Right? Then you guys remember we talked about you want reviews. Here's a little bit about me, the team around me. Sometimes there's an argument to be made with people that I'll say, hey, instead of hiring one agent, you're hiring multiple agents because I've got a whole team. I've got a transaction coordinator. I've got inside sales agents. I've got a full-time marketer. That's one way that I try to set myself aside from Micah. Right? You've got a team. You've got stuff, but sometimes I'll say that. Right? Say what you can. So here's my soft close. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is there anything that you've heard other agents do that I have forgot to mention when it comes to marketing your home? I always ask that question. Then is there anything you've seen on HDTV or heard that other realtors do that I forgot to mention here that you want done on your home? Do we cover it all here? I always want to give people that chance to say, well, hang on, I saw somewhere that, let's get an example, 3D tours. I saw somewhere that like 3D tours are really cool. Do you do that? Yeah, I do that. But I don't think we should do it on your little condo because that's pointless. Or yeah, we're going to do that. This house is a perfect opportunity for us to do a 3D tour. So glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I do 3D tours. What else? Have you heard anything else or want to do anything else with your marketing that I forgot to mention here? I want them to get to the point where they say, nope, that sounds perfect. Questions, go. Like Jay Dare. Yeah, I had that happen 2 months ago where my seller said, well, I'm really excited to be on TV because Jay Dare has a Saturday morning program or whatever. And I said, listen, I don't put you on TV, but I also have no data whatsoever. Where's it at? No data whatsoever where somebody has said, I bought a home because I saw it on TV. It literally doesn't exist. So the honest truth is that guy on TV is promoting himself, not his listing. He has listings on there. Like it's an interesting program. Homes don't sell because they're on TV. The data's not here. No, I'm at the most important question of this whole point. When they say, nope, that all sounds great. Here's the ultimate soft close. Micah, assuming we can agree on price, are you ready to list your home? Does this sound like the right plan for you? Because now I'm going to get any other objections out of the way and they're going to say, no, that sounds good. Let's talk about price. That is my segue. Assuming we can agree on price, are you ready to move forward with this marketing plan? That's my first yes, right? Okay, I saw a hand. Where was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious, if you've ever been asked to do something that you've never tried and maybe later added by a client about marketing their home or
Years ago, I had somebody that he didn't list with me. And when I asked him why not, he said, well, the other realtor that I met with was willing to pass flyers around my neighborhood. And it was really silly because I thought, wow, out of everything to lose a listing over, that was so dumb. So I now do incorporate flyers are distributed to the neighborhood, but it's in preparation for the open house, right? Anyone that does an open house on one of my listings, I absolutely request and require either the morning of or the day before. I want them to go canvass the neighborhood, invite people. It's only going to help their open house be better, but I do want flyers to go out. Other than that, I mean, here's the thing. You tell me, what could they possibly say? Maybe featured on TV. And they might say, well, what about a YouTube video? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that I'd generate a YouTube video. Sure. You know, Matterport 3D is sometimes a debate where I'll have somebody that wants a 3D tour and I'll have to remind them that for your house, actually, we don't want to give everything away in the marketing. And if you do a 3D tour, you might have people that say, I already saw it 3D. I don't want to come see it. And I want people standing in your living room to feel the warm and fuzzies. 3D tours are interesting. They haven't taken off like we all thought they would because it's been around for years now, right? And they're not necessarily super effective. Sometimes they are. So I usually use that judgment like, is this one that I'd want to do? Is this not one? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Say that other than price.
That first close is assuming we can agree on price for your home. Does this sound like the right plan, the right marketing plan to move forward with? Is there anything else we need to talk about? Assuming we can agree on price, are you good to move forward? That's my first soft close, just because I want to make sure that's my check-in, right? I want them to, I want the yes, but I also want them to say, well, no, I don't know how showings work. Well, great. We're going to talk about that after we talk about price. Or I want them to get their questions out. I want to make sure that they're following the conversation and that they're having that opportunity to consult.
I have a question about the marks on the MLS. Maybe
Yes.
we could talk about it down the road or in a few minutes or right now.
Yeah, MLS remarks. So first, to take a step back, I'll ask my sellers if they have any interest in writing their home's bio. I used to require all my sellers to do it. Now I just ask them if they want to or not. Some people like those high eyes that are just so proud of their house. They've done all these cool things and they're like, you're probably going to miss stuff. Like you don't even ask me about the neighborhood party or this or that. It's like, you're right. So let's do this. I want you to write your home's bio for me. I want you just to write everything as if this is a letter to the future buyer. What would you want to brag about your home? Will you write that up? And I do this all the time. And a lot of people love doing it. And that feeds a lot of my description. I'm still going to fluff it up and add things that I want to add. But I do use that for the description. But I do like involving my sellers if it's appropriate. Sometimes there's those high Ds like, I'm not writing about my house. That's why I'm hiring you. Like, go knock it out, go get it done. And then I usually have some templates. People tease me a lot because almost all of my listings start with a really, really cheesy line. And that's one of my little signatures. I've been doing it for years and years from now, but it talks about, I always start with views. It's kind of funny. I always write my descriptions like an onion, by the way. So like the location, the views, the neighborhood, whatever first, then I bring it into the yard, then I bring it into the house, then I bring it into details. That's kind of when I'm writing, I kind of think of that onion. But I always start out, are you guys laughing at you're going to find a peace in your life? Caroline's my cousin, everybody.
So I copied that one liner. It worked well.
Worked well, right?
I got 26 offers.
Yeah, you'll sit on the porch and watch the sunset over Utah Lake and find a peace in your life that's been unmatched. Something like that, right? It's so corny, but I put it on all of my listings. Sometimes it's the view of Timpanogos. Sometimes it's the Ochre Mountains, the Wasatch Mountains, Utah Lake. Yeah, you're sitting on your back porch because I have to think of the orientation of the house. You'll sit on your back porch and watch the sunset. Yeah. Yeah. Well, totally. And the details are already in the listing. We already know how many baths. We already know the stats of the house, right? The agent, or excuse me, not the agent remarks, but the public remarks are kind of for the fluff. And I'm an advocate for put as much in there as possible. As a buyer's agent, again, empower me. Put everything in there. Tell me if it, tell me, like, show it off. this is your opportunity to sell the house. So put it on there. And when you take a lot of these classes that talk about just like selling, you got to realize the psychology of selling usually is lifestyle. It's not about the house, it's about the lifestyle. So language like a living room, great to host parties, or a backyard, great to entertain, like that's what selling is. And this isn't a language of sales class, but pay attention to that. When you're reading listings, pay attention to the good ones, steal from them. If somebody has a great way to describe a garage, meaning it can house your toys for great adventures of side-by-side riding up Mapleton or Hobble Creek Canyon, like, cool, put that in there. Like, that's lifestyle, show it off.
Yeah.
Roll your eyes all you want.
I'm sure we're all capable, most of us are capable of stringing together a good description or an okay description, but sometimes we read awesome descriptions, it just create a great feeling as you read this, and that's what we want to do. Have you ever heard the term copyright? Or, oh, that's good copy.
Yeah.
There's copywriters out there, like, magazine short illustrative description.
I promise you right now, if you grab your phone and Google great real estate listing descriptions, you'll find 1,000 sites that lay out great ways to use terminology to describe real estate listings. Like, this isn't rocket science. Now, since I spend some time on it, I like it to be good. Here's the thing though, is 50% of it is copy from other listings, right? Like I have all my little zinger lines that I've come up with over the years, but I do like to get very specific and have a little fun with it. I usually have a few people proof it. There's nothing more annoying, like as a buyer's agent, to see crappy remarks, right? It's like, come on, like, help me help you sell this dang thing. Like, that's what we're doing here. The longer, the better. If somebody writes a book, great. I'm all about it. Sometimes I write a book. Yeah. Right? You got to keep them on the hook, right? You got to keep them on the hook.
To someone and they look over it, revise it, and send it back for a fee. $50 for some guy who.
You guys can pay me $50. I'll do that for $50. I'll read your dang things. But this is the moment we need to address a couple of my pet peeves. Well, let's talk about the legal things first. Great family home. Who's read that in a listing? Great family neighborhood, great family home, great family. Is that appropriate or not? It is absolutely not. Familiar status is a protected class. In fact, a lot of that all happened from New York. If you guys have taken your CE classes and stuff, New York City had a very big plague of landlords discriminating against pregnant women. It was a real big issue. That was the leading cause for them to eventually bring in familiar status as a protected class with race and religion, is because people were discriminating, landlords especially, saying, I don't want crying babies in my apartment buildings, or they were discriminating against kids. It was kind of an interesting story. I learned all this in some boring, but not boring CE class I did. So yeah, when you say family home, if I see that, I probably will hit that anonymous button and report you for discriminating against all my single friends, right? So be careful. Race, right? This is a great white neighborhood, black neighborhood. I don't think anyone does that, but I have seen one that actually did say, something along the lines of best Polynesian luau's happen in this neighborhood, something like that. But it was like a Polynesian, and I didn't report it or anything. But I thought, ooh, that could be, yeah, that could get into race. Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. I like good pig pickings. Yeah, you bet, right? And that was their intent, right? They had no ill feelings. I think we're pretty good. I think we're in a. I think we're getting better, but it's out there. You guys will see it. Protecting your language, especially offers. I mean, this is a whole nother, well, we're actually going to touch on it, but offers that have, Romero, Rodriguez, and you're presenting and you say, well, I don't know if I want a Hispanic family in this neighborhood. Woo-hoo, time out. You are federally violating people's rights. It's inappropriate. Don't participate in it, stuff like that. But in your description, the one I see all the time in Utah is the family thing, right? The other pet peeve. Sorry, there's a hand. Go.
I was just gonna say Utah. The other probably one is churches, like 5 minutes.
Great ward. Say it all the time. Great ward, best ward ever. No. If you're going to talk about wards, you better talk about parishes and.
Temples too, I think that's the thing that you're supposed to do.
Yeah, but people will still put like a temple view. That happens all the time. And that I think it's okay to say that. I think you got to be careful though. Anytime you get into some of those things, you could also disenfranchise buyers. When Tooele announced their temple, I had one of my SOI people call me and say, "Can you believe this crap? I need to sell my house and get out of here. I don't want to be next to the Mormon temple. They're not LDS." And they're like, the traffic, it was in Erda. They actually moved the temple now, but when they announced the Erda temple, every single lot in Erda is a 5-acre lot. They don't have any higher density than 5-acre lots. Those people don't like people. Like they live in Erda for a reason. And so when they said, "Hey, we're going to put a temple right in Erda," they called me like the day that was announced and said, "You got to sell it. We got to get out of here because we're trying to get away from people, and the temple's going to bring in traffic, and it's huge, right? It's a big deal." Luckily, they moved it, and so they haven't sold their home, but Tooele's going to deal with it now. I think it's in Overlake or wherever. But yeah, temples that's interesting. You got to address it. What else? Huh? Yeah, and we're going to get into that right after this on presenting your offer to your seller on that. We're going to talk about love letters. I'll end with this pet peeve on this, and that is it's not so much anymore. And you know what I'm talking about when people say, "Better make offer, hurry fast, won't last long." That crap, like we can see the days on market, yo. It's been 27 days and they never change it. Yeah, and they never change it. It's like, okay, come on, like really, we'll go fast. Like, don't be dumb, like be classy. Again, you were LeBron James of real estate. LeBron doesn't put stuff like that in his listings, right? Like, be professional. Yeah. No, it actually ended up not being. So what he's talking about is during the Black Lives, when we had the riots and the protests and everything from George Floyd, there was a really big push, and it was a beautiful push in most ways. Like KW added equality or equity is our last our values to our thing. Like it really did reform a lot of companies, which was a great thing, but it got a little too extreme. And one of them was in Texas. There was a group of I don't know if it was their association, but it was realtors that said they want to not call it a master bedroom, call it an owner's suite or something like that, because I guess they tried to link that master bedroom went to slavery with masters and stuff. But nothing ever happened with it. So I still call it a master bedroom.
Yeah, I think master main,
Yeah.
there's other words, master or the main bedroom, or it's not the slavery master, it's the master.
Right, but they were arguing that there was ties to that. It didn't go anywhere. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe that comes back, and that is something. Pay attention to it. Be sensitive. Again, we're trying to appeal to as many people as possible. So if you're doing anything that's disenfranchising anybody, pay attention to it. We want to be all inclusive. Vanilla. Remember, vanilla is our favorite flavor when selling houses. We want to be, we want to lure in as many people as we possibly can. Oh, did we beat that good enough? I wasn't even planning on talking about remarks. Here we're talking about remarks. Hey, while we're at it, let's talk about agent remarks, huh? Agent remarks. What do you put in your agent remarks on your listings? Everything. Put yourself. So there's two motivating factors right? There's two things I do on my agent remarks that I think are very, very valuable. The first thing is the most selfish of all. I want to put everything in the agent remarks to limit my phone from ringing. When you have a hot listing and you're getting 20 offers, for every one of those offers, there's 4, 5, 6 other conversations that they want to have. It's like hundreds of conversations. It will ruin your weekend, ruin your week with just one hot listing. I don't want buyer's agents asking me the same stupid questions every single time. So I use the agent remarks selfishly to get everything on there so that an agent has no reason to call me unless it's to send a text saying, "Check your inbox, I sent you an offer," right? I don't want somebody to call and say, "Well, tell me about," we'll go right to the big one. And every good buyer's agent should do this, and that is, how do I win? What's the most important thing for your sellers? How do I win? Well, guess what? I literally put that in my agent remarks where I say, "Hey, yo, buyer's agents, if you want to win my seller's acceptance, I want a fast close. And at the end of the day, it's price, price, price. Or, hey, we actually need a rent back because we're building an arrive home and it's not quite done yet. I'm literally going to spell out what I want. You might consider waiving the appraisal. Oh, by the way, and I've gotten in trouble for this, but I actually found out it's okay, but it might disenfranchise some people. And that is, I have put on there, it's attractive to us for you to close at my same title company or even use my preferred lender. I put that right in my agent remarks before, which it is okay. I got in trouble, but then the MLS said, no, that's fine. You can absolutely put that. I put all of that. My agent remarks are a mile long. Put everything in there. And then every time I get a text or a phone call where somebody asks me a question that I'm annoyed with, I hurry and put it in the agent remarks so I don't get it again. Right? So if I keep getting phone calls, now the property line seems a little confusing. Is that sports court part of this property or the other property? You better believe I'm going to clarify that in the listing and say the sports court is included in our property, yada, yada, yada. Questions?
What about no showings until our open house?
You got to be careful. The MLS has cracked down on that. I can't remember where it is, but in the MLS, you actually, yeah, there's a time period. There's a time period. I can't remember. I think it's 2 days. It's like, yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't think maybe that's an effective strategy?
It's actually surprisingly a very effective strategy. And you're waiting clear till Sunday? Okay. Okay, now there is a time limit. I just don't know what it is, but unless somebody clicks the report button on the MLS, you're probably okay. Yeah, so the reason that is effective, and I don't do it on all of my listings, but there is some, so I don't know how far down this rabbit hole we want to go. There's the pocket listing conversation that was hotly debated at NAR the last couple of years. Pocket listings are actually no longer allowed. You cannot start advertising your listings on like Facebook Marketplace or other places before it's on the MLS. We used to do that all the time because then it seems like an off-market. Bingo. It was Realtor saying, I'm going to go clean up and just pick up so many unrepresented buyers because I'm getting all these calls because it's on Facebook Marketplace and not on the MLS. And maybe I can even double side it. And the National Association of Realtors came out and said, actually, you're not honoring your fiduciary. Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm preaching here. I'm talking about pocket listings. But they've now said, no, when you take that listing, it needs to go on the MLS. You are not to do within 24 hours, you're not to do pocket listing on KSL or Facebook for 2 weeks ahead of schedule.
Throw it on Facebook, that starts the 24-hour clock.
Right, Dean? What if the client does? It's okay, right?
Well, no, it's them personally advertising their own home without the realtor.
Without their contact info? So glad Dean walked in because I wouldn't tackle that question. I would just go back to one fundamental question. Are you doing that to truly maximize the proceeds of your client, or are you doing that to pick up buyers for yourself selfishly? Right? I think if the answer is you're doing it for your own interest, then you have a problem. And that goes through a lot of these things. If you're ever crossing that line of you're doing stuff for you and not to maximize the profitability of your clients, you've crossed the line. That's the what would Jesus do question. Ask yourself that a lot in real estate.
Real quick, as far as coming soon, restrictions there, advertising coming soon before it hits the MLS. Is there timing?
Yeah, 24 hours. 24 hours. Now, what Amy's doing, the no showings, that's okay. And that can be effective when people say, hey, we're just not doing any showings, but we do want to get it out there and start the log jam and create some hype and urgency. It can also get really annoying. Agents abuse that a lot where it's like, just list it when we can pursue it. Saturday's always hard because buyer's agent's like, well, I'm going on vacation. Can I just not get in there? I don't know. I don't do it. When I list it, I almost exclusively go live on a Wednesday. I market the heck out of it. Thursday, Friday, we're usually door knocking, prepping for the open house. Saturday's the grand open house. We've got offers trickle in all day Saturday, all day Sunday, highest and best due by Monday at noon. I'm reviewing those Monday evening with my clients. We have an acceptance by Tuesday morning. That is like 99% of my listings. That is how I roll them out. Make sense? Other questions? Right? Dean, I promise I'm not teaching false doctrine. I'm keeping them on the straight and narrow. All right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that sounds like a marketing plan that get your home sold, assuming we can agree on price. You're ready to move forward? Yes, I get that. Yes. Now I'm going to launch into the CMA where we go through it. I don't have that in here, but that's where we're going to go through the CMA process. There is a section in here that talks about that. We're going to skip it because we have entire classes on how to do CMAs, but you guys have already heard my philosophy. I don't want it to be my price. I want it to be their price. And I'm constantly going to be asking the question, what do the comps tell us? And we're going to go through it. Now, multiple listing presentations. I have walked into a house and within the first few minutes, I have realized that the comps I pulled for this house are garbage. That I did not know that they converted their garage into living space or that their basement was finished or they did this huge addition that's not on the county records, or the opposite, that it's a nasty house. They've done terrible things to it. It's outdated. I've got broken windows, whatever it might be. If I feel like I am not prepared, there is no problem doing this. And that's where I say, hey, I would like to go back to my office and spend some time looking at comps. And then let's either meet up on a Zoom call or have you pop into my office and let's finish the price conversation, because the comparables that I prepared for this just aren't right. Own that. Own that. Otherwise, you're going to pull out comparables and you're just going to look like an idiot, right? You messed up. You didn't mess up. It just blindsided you. Own that moment. That's happened a lot in my career. A lot. I've even just come back to that. Said, hey, can I just come back tomorrow? We can finish this up because there's a lot of stuff that I was not aware of. Fair enough. Don't try to just force it. But assuming it's accurate, I am going to dive into the comparables. We're going to go through it. We're going to say, based on these comparables, based on this analysis, what do you think what would you like to price your home at? We'll also have the conversation of, well, I'll show you in a second, of the three strategies, the three pricing strategies. The first one is the bidding war strategy. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's price it way lower than all of these comps. So we're just guaranteed an auction. We're going to sell your home auction style. Strategy number two is the market value strategy, which is, hey, the stats, the comps tell us we're going to be right at this price. We still might get multiple offers. That's the trends we're at, but we're going to price it right on what the data tells us and what these comps tell us to be at. The third strategy is called the needle in a haystack strategy, or the where's the stupid, dumb California cash strategy. And that's where we overprice it, knowing that we're overpricing it and knowing that it won't appraise. So the only opportunity that that's going to sell is if there's a cash buyer. I don't normally recommend that, but it is a strategy and people try it sometimes. So based on the comps, based on this, what would you like to do? My recommendation is somewhere between the bidding war and the market price. Again, you can't market your home too low. You can't mess up in this market unless your agent stinks. And I don't stink. I'm great at working the magic of multiple offers. So trust me, I'm going to work it great. People are going to be in a feeding frenzy. They're going to offer you the moon. So which strategy would you like to pick? I want this price, this strategy. Great. There's our price. So we know our condition plan. We know our marketing plan. We now have our price. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's move forward with the plan. What does our plan look like? Closing process, I might touch on. If I put it in here, net sheet. Oh, I should back up. When we determine the price, after we determine the price, I say, okay, well, let's see what money that puts in your pocket. And so I skip here and I handwrite the net sheet for them. So I tell them, okay, we're going to sell the home for this price. Got buyer agent commission, listing agent commission, roughly title insurance, $600 for a home warranty. We might have concessions. For example, there's, spray painted grass. We might need to offer a concession to cover that spray painted grass where it might be. And then what's your payoff again? And it equals your proceeds.
Are you getting deeper into the weeds with prorated taxes and different title fees? Break it down that way?
Nope. I'm lumping everything in title insurance. So the reconveyance fee, all of that stuff. And I'll tell them, like, look, when we get closer, we're going to review these numbers 4 times. This is the first time. The second time is when we get the offer. The third time is in preparation for the settlement. And then the last time is at settlement. We're going to review the numbers 4 times. I want to drill that in your head.
So you
right?
put
And so,
$3,000 there, I mean, title, what would that be?
so you can jump on your favorite title company. Real Advantage is my favorite title company. Right on their website, you can get a quote. Sometimes I'll even text if I don't know. I'm at that point now, like, tell me a price. I'm going to tell you roughly what the title fees are. If it's, and it's less than 1%. If it's a lower purchase price, it's over 1%. But only it's like, hey, it's 550. Great. I'm going to put in $3,500 for all the title fees. It's 35. If it's $1 million, I'm probably going to do 6 or 7 grand in there, right? If it's a tiny little like $200,000 one-bedroom condo somewhere, it's still about $2,000, maybe $1,800. So that's, you know, kind of the 1% rule is relatively close. Yeah.
I got a lot of questions, so I have so many questions. So when you're talking about the comparables and comps, I had a situation in which we didn't have that many comps. The comps were from 5 years ago and everything was new construction. So my fear was like, what if the appraisal doesn't come up? So in the situations where your comps and the appraisal, there's a huge gap. What happens on the practice? Because they're gonna assume that maybe it's your fault. You know, what do you tell your seller if there's a discrepancy in both numbers?
So the long answer that I'm not going to get into is on some CMA classes, there are ways to price houses without having comps. It's where you look at what did they pay for the house 8 years ago? Let's find the appreciation rate for every single year for that. Let's see what that has done. There's ways to say, hey, well, this property is nothing like it, but I can at least get a price per square foot. Maybe I can apply. There are other ways. But the short answer is if you really, it's just over your head, order an appraisal. Pay the $600, have an appraisal done. But my default answer usually is, hey, I've got great news. We don't actually care about pricing. This is kind of radical. Roll with me here for a second. But the price of the home in 2022 kind of doesn't matter because everything is an auction. So let's just pick a price. See what happens. And I'll tell you what, if we pick a price and it's too high, I'll know. If my phone's not ringing in 3 or 4 days, like with stuff, we're way too priced. We need to adjust quick, right? Like just use the feedback. Yeah, unique properties are sometimes the hardest. There's plenty of properties that they just don't have comps. There's nothing out there and it's very hard to price. Yeah.
Well, I just had this conversation with my sister and brother-in-law. They've got a 5,000 square foot duplex in Holiday. Airbnb, it makes them $65. We don't own the market, whether it's a good or bad market. We do everything, make sure the condition, the market plan's in place. Like you said, the market brings with the, we can't own that.
Right. Yeah. And they might get mad at you. That's again, if it's not your price, it's their strategy, then they can't get mad at you. But you've got to translate the market, and sometimes that's hard to do. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. So I go through the net sheet and I lay out my plan. My conversation usually ends with a calendar conversation. All right. The first step to move forward with all of this is I need you to sign this contract right here. Sign it. Green line me. Great. The next step is when are we doing the photo shoot? I think I have that on here. What's funny is I know for a fact I have a sheet in my packet. I tried to get this all into here just for this presentation, but I have a little thing that just has dates. The first date is when's the photo shoot? When's the big day for the photo shoot? I usually prefer to do a Monday because it gives you the weekend to have the house in tip-top shape. Let's put in a date. All right. Then what's our go live date? When's the sign going up and when are we officially public to the world? Let's get that date on there. When's the grand open house? I want to do an open house within the first few days, preferably a Friday or a Saturday. Let's write that down. Does this sound like a good plan? Yes, it is. Awesome. Do we need to talk about how showings will work? There's a super box. Here's how that works. I want you gone. I want you to leave the lights on. I'm going to email you some more information on how showings work. Do you have any other questions that we haven't reviewed? Are you guys feeling good? Are you feeling excited? Yes, hooray, hug, kiss, out of here. Questions on wrapping that up? I've got my agreement. I've got my plan. Yes. What's that? Mm-hmm. Yep. It comes from my assistant. It's a whole email that describes how showings work.
Are you leaving them with homework for seller disclosures? No, I said put form at what point?
I DocuSign everything. However, I have left that behind. I'll say, hey, we've got this signed. By the way, I need you to fill out these property condition disclosures. by hand, and then I'll just pick them up, or you can scan them to me and send them to me. I do that. I've been DocuSigning the last several that I've done. I DocuSign. It's a pain in the butt because there's like 300 fields to fill out. Now, the ML is Dean gone. The MLS input form is the stupidest form on planet Earth. I don't know why that even exists. Like, what's its purpose? It's not an agreement. It's not a disclosure. It's literally the seller saying, hey, agent, here's the information about my home for you to then type and put it in the computer. That document needs to go away, but we still have to have it signed. I usually have my sellers put in the price. This is why I want Dean gone. I have them put in the price because that's important and I want it their price. And then I tell them, don't worry about filling anything else out. I'm going to build the listing. We're going to proof it together and hit submit. And so they just sign the bottom of it blank. Don't quote me on that. Clay told us to not fill out. Now here's the thing, and I just went through this, Caroline. The real way to do it is, hey, fill this out, answer all the questions, especially if it is kind of an older home and there's some funk to it. It's like, yeah, I have no idea if that's asphalt shingles or not on the roof or whatever. Give them the form, have them fill it out. Sure, that would be the right way to do it. It's just a lot of questions, right? You've never had your sellers fill it out. You're supposed to fill it out, Mr. Been in the business a gazillion years. Yeah, the input form is for them to fill out. Now, here's the thing. Now what you're saying, well, hang on a sec. So there is a way to populate that form based on an MLS number or a tax ID number. So then it's mostly filled out. You might even fill it out. I used to for a while. Maybe I've gotten lazy. When I was doing the walkthrough, I was filling out the MLS input form during my walkthrough. That was my notes. And then I would have them sign it right on the spot. That's probably like the best way to do it. But usually either they fill it out or you fill it out, but they do have to initial that document. And it's still, like, if you want to get paid, that's one of the required docs. So you usually fill it out? Right. And just sign whatever got populated. But here's the problem. If it wasn't on the MLS previously, you got nothing to populate. You're starting from scratch. And I don't want to take the time to do that. My sellers usually don't want to take the time out. I'm going to build the listing anyway. Probably. So like, see, you're validating me. But if Dean were here, Dean would say, guys, get it all filled out. We don't anymore, but we used to have every change you made on the MLS required a signature. Like if you changed one thing, you had to get a signature. I don't think that exists anymore. I haven't heard of anybody actually getting a signature for any change. Just price. Yeah, if you're going to lower the price, you should grab a signature for that. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Somebody fact check that. I can't remember. It's 5 or 7. It's not very long. Yeah. Yeah. If you guys. Yeah. So I do that all the time. You guys heard me at the beginning. I said, I want to get in my listing, even if we're months away, especially you guys remember the whole thing. If I've got repairs and we say, oh yeah, we're doing like home services, we need to like do repairs. This can take a month for us to remodel the house. I am absolutely, especially if I'm paying for the repairs, they're signing a freaking listing agreement, right? Like that's my security. Like I'm getting that signed, but I am including that MLS exclusion form for sure. Now we're still going to go on the MLS, but legally, so I don't get fined by the MLS, I need to have the MLS exclusion form signed to give me time. And I do that quite often. I've had people say, oh yeah, we're like 6 months away. I'll still have them sign the agreement. Every once in a while, if it's like, and it's risky, right? If it's my SOI or whatever, I might say, I'll just send you the paperwork when we're actually going in the market, but I got to be dang sure that they're not going to cut me out or something. Like I want that contract signed. There's a psychological step of signing a contract. Even though like if somebody said, Clay, you suck, you're fired. Yeah, I'm going to rip up the listing agreement. I would never hold anybody to it if genuinely like we shouldn't be working together, right? But there's something psychological when they sign it. There's an agreement. There's agreement made. Amber. Great question. So if it's home services, they're paying me. I haven't crossed that bridge before, but if I'm like fixing up the home and they're like, hey, we fixed it up so nice, we love it, we sold it to ourselves, we're staying. Like that's happened, right? People have done all the fix up, their honey-do list finally got done after a decade because they were prepping to sell and they realized they actually love the home they're in. That's happened to them before. Like, but if I put money into it, yeah, they're paying me back. But what you're saying, and I have had this happen where I've like paid for the photographer and I've actually gone live on the market only for them to pull the whole, hey, shoot, we should have excluded somebody on the listing agreement. My son or a family member actually wants to buy the home. And that's always a little tricky. Now, usually what I've done is I don't ask them, will reimburse me for the $150 for photos. I usually have just been able to facilitate a transaction fee or say, hey, no problem. I'm not even going to charge all the commission, but I do want a $2,000 transaction fee. Also facilitate the sale with your family member. It's going to preserve your relationship anyway, but I'll do all the disclosures, help with the lending, help with title. I'll facilitate that whole thing for a $2,000. So it's $1,000 a side, $1,000 buyer, $1,000 you, and I'll just facilitate that whole transaction. And that helps reimburse me for the photos and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. And I have had people just say, we've just decided to stay. And I'm like, shoot, I just spent money on photos. I haven't asked them to reimburse. I'd rather play it good, say no big deal. When the time does come, hopefully you come back to me in 6 months or whatever. Usually it's temporary stuff. The example I gave where I like went through the house and the lady was like so sad that she didn't show off her home. That was kind of that deal. Like they had a change of plans and I just played it really cool, stayed in there, and she did end up listing with me, but it was like 6 or 7 months later. Like they just had some life stuff that came up. And then that time around, I definitely let her show me around the house, right? Yeah. Questions, comments? We kind of forgot a big thing. Do you guys even want to talk about commissions? Mm-hmm. You could be. Mm-hmm. Sure, family deals. Yeah, Real World has Clay Winder discounted one of his listings, of course. Like I've done it. Here we're saying never do it, be the LeBron James. Like I've discounted for reasons for that. However, it's actually pretty rare. Even my own family, like I'm a pretty good, I usually describe it like this. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I discount my listing really only in one circumstance, and that's charity. So is this a charity situation? We need to help you out because I will absolutely help you out. You know, it's pretty simple, but the sliding scale helps. I adopted the sliding scale only a couple of years ago because it really frames commissions quite well. So when people are like, well, I want, especially when you get in discounters, the homie conversations, like it's all a game, right? It's quite a game. And so when people say, well, is there any way for me to not pay you 6% commission? Yeah, you bet there's a way. Let's talk about them. The first one is what I described, kind of the $2,000 transaction fee. I kind of waffle. If it's a small property, it's $2,000. Other times I've just said, look, 1%, and I'll do that transaction for you. It's the 1%. They already have the buyer. They've already started. They already have their family member, whoever. They just want professional services and a neutral third party to help navigate that. Great, I can do that. The next one I always put on here, look, if a buyer comes in and is unrepresented, I'm going to split that BAC with you. I'll take 4.5%, and you end up saving, opposed from the 6%. You end up saving 1.5%. I also get to earn a little bit more money, but I've also got to do double the work now because I've got to essentially be the buyer's agent. Are you okay with that? And I say, but you need to plan on 3% to me and offering 3% to a buyer, right? And then this is what I've always presented, the distressed sale because of short sales. I will tell you though, after family reunion last week, I think what I'm going to do is actually create this as some sort of higher tier listing service and spell out like what are like the crazy above and beyond stuff. I don't know what that is. If you guys have ideas, let me know. But I think it would be really cool to get back to 7% listings, not because they're in distress, but because there's like added coolness that you want to do, like helicopter tours or something. Like I don't know. Like I want to figure that out. I think that'd be cool to have like a 7% like ultra premium platinum, whatever we want to call it. That'd be fun. But I like showing that, hey, I've done 7% listings multiple times in my career. It's short sales, it's foreclosure. It's been stuff where I have to rescue you and stop your foreclosure because you've got a sale date or something like that. And so I show people this and I say, these are the commissions. You need to plan on 6%. Maybe we get lucky. It's very, very rare, but maybe we get lucky in a 4.5. Do you have any questions? And this is where the objections might come up, or they'll say, nope, sounds good. Let's go to work. Get me top dollar. Yeah.
Well, you talk about this, you get the exclusive right to sell agreement out, and then you need to put it on paper. So you write 4.5 to 6% on the ERS.
Nope. It's in an addendum. It's in an addendum. And the addendum will say an unrepresented buyer. Actually, it's not. They updated the ERS. No, that wouldn't apply for it. But the ERS now has you declare the BAC as well.
Yeah,
You guys know that.
so it's
No,
what
so
I'm
it's in.
saying.
This is in the addendum. Yep.
So they just have this in their mind that, okay, eventually they will save 1.5% if there's an unrepresented buyer. But right now, I'm comfortable 3 and 3%
Mm-hmm.
on the ERS.
Right, and that's why they write it. And sometimes the unrepresented buyer, like sometimes I'll admit I haven't done the addendum, and it is just an understanding that like this is what I presented, and I will honor it. I'm not going to hold it. I have never held somebody to a full 6% when I've talked through this option, because I do offer that. Now is like the everything else that Micah brought up. Is like, well, what if I buy a house with you, or what if I do? There are special deals, and I think it's okay to consider those. I just don't want you guys to be cheap, really. And so I've had people that said, look, I'm going to turn around and buy a house with you. Is there any chance you would discount that 6%? What's my answer? Yeah, I do. I know you don't.
If I consider it, I always say I will discount when you buy.
Bingo.
I'm not gonna do that first.
Yeah. And if it's simultaneous, it's just easier to discount the sell. But I have done that too, where they're like, well, if we sell with you, we discount it. And I'll usually say, well, pay me up front because I don't want to get cut out of the deal when you go to buy. But I always remind people, say, look, I'll consider lowering. It's usually 0.5%. I have done a full 1% and taken a 2% listing. And I always tell people a 2% listing for me is a more than 2 listing opportunity. So like I have some builder agreements where I'm at a 2%. I'll disclose that. But they send me 26 listings a year. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'll do that for 2%, right? But there's other times I'll say, look, I'll do it for 2.5 if you're buying with me. So I'll give the 0.5% discount. But I also have to remind them, hey, it actually might be 3 though if you turn around and there isn't a BAC or there's not a healthy BAC. And my minimum BAC is 2.5%. If it's lower than 2.5, like Lennar, you're going to have 1.5% closing costs to get me to that 2.5. That's my bare minimum as a buyer's agent, right? So I remind them, hey, if that's a 3%, yeah, I'm going to discount you to 2.5%. But if that's not discounted, I'm not going to discount it here either. Like it's all kind of a game of how this all works. Yeah.
Instead of saying like a percentage, they would discount $1,500 or something, so that there's a number associated. They're like 1% could be $6,000. But if you say, well, my friends and family discount is $1,500.
Now I'll correct you right there. There's no such thing as a friends and family discount in this business. Ever. Why? Because you are in the friends and family business. Every one of your clients ideally is a friend and family. Like you're building an SOI business. So don't ever let that terminology come out of your mouth of friends and family discount, because that's your entire business. Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, you just charge your family more money. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, just be very cautious because like, and that's the thing too. And I've told even my own siblings and stuff like, look, if I work for free, where does that end? Like my 64% of Red Sign's business is SOI business. And that you guys saw the whole story. Like I've always been heavy on SOI. Like you do one discount, word gets out. And the few times that I do a discount, I usually have even said, hey, if I do this discount, not only are you buying your next house with me, but I'm taking that out of marketing dollars. So if we do this discount, can we agree that you will give me at least 2 referrals through this process? Talk to people, you're going to get help moving. Will you just commit to giving me 2 solid referrals? Even if they don't go anywhere, will you just commit to giving me 2 names and 2 phone numbers of people that I could potentially work with? Because that will justify me doing this discount because I'm going to take it out of my marketing dollars. Is that fair? And I'm going to shake their hand and get that agreement that they're going to give me a couple of referrals. I've done that multiple times. That's a great little trick. to help supplement it. Yeah, so then you hopefully are buying, buying those referrals. Now I'm waiting for somebody to call BS on me. I'm waiting for somebody to say, Clay, I've seen your listings the last 6 months. They haven't been 3% BACs. So call me out. Call me out. So I have been firm on the 3% until January 2021. So a little over a year ago was the first time I ever deviated from it. And it was pressure from all you guys that have just cut down the BAC. But it started because one of my builders said, yo, why are you still making me pay a 3% BAC? All of my competitors are now 2.5% or even lower, except for Edge. So it came from one of my builders said, talk me through. And I said, you know what? You're right. We offer 2.5%. I bet it will have no effect on buyer agents making offers. And so he did it, and it had no effect. So now my BACs are either 3% or 2.5%. But I've adopted, and correct me if you guys have got a better way, but I have actually let the CMA now dictate the BAC. So when I'm looking at my comps, if I'm listing an Alpine home, which I just did, or I'm listing a River Bottoms or a luxury home, it's going to be 3% because all of my comps are going to be at 3%. If it's a lot listing, for example, all lots, land, that's still at 3%. But if it's the little Edge condo over here, the single family home in American Fork, the chances of me doing my CMA on the BAC probably is going to tell me that 2.5% will be just fine. I know, it's painful. Micah, we're losing. We're losing here. No, I pass that savings to my seller. Yep. Now I have a lot of 5.5%ers because of that. So I do still take 3% as the listing agent and offer 2.5% on the BAC. It's a weird world we've lived in. My whole career, I've never even crossed that line until the last 12 months. Yeah, so Daniel brings up a good point. That was mine too. There have been times, well, just like we talked about, when somebody is buying the house with me, or I decide, okay, I'm going to do the discount. That's my negotiating skills. That's me making that discount. I am not going to punish the buyer's agents by passing that along. So that's important that you said that, because there's a lot of times where agents will be like, okay, fine, I'll take a 5% listing. And then they just quietly only offer 2% and they still take the 3%. There's a reason why last year our ERS changed where the BAC now has to be specified in the listing agreement. A lot of you new agents don't realize that only happened a year ago. It's always just been 6%. And there are a lot of agents that really got in hot water. And I took a listing from an agent because he got fired because his sellers discovered that they signed a 6%. He was only offering 2%. And he was taking 4%. And they were so offended by that, they fired him on the spot and they hired me. And they should have been offended. That was an appropriate response to that scenario. Yeah.
So one question about where it discloses that, if you have an addendum stating this is the flexible commission structure, this supersedes that, correct?
Yeah, the addendum is going to supersede the front page. Yeah, yep. Yeah, questions on commissions? So I know that's kind of different, but yes, the CMA, I will look at the BACs to see what the trends are. Yeah. What do you mean presenting it separately? My vocabulary, as you guys can hear, anytime somebody asks me, what's the commission, I don't ever say 6%. I say I charge 3% and I recommend you offer 3%. Yeah, I always present it as 2. And that's why I always say, and I recommend you offer 3. They need to understand that, that's how it works. And then when we're doing that CMA, again, people aren't dumb. A lot of people will say, well, hang on, do we really have to offer 3? And that's we'll say, well, what do the comps say? You guys are going to hear that 100 times a day. What do the comps say, right? And we'll be like, you know what? You're right. Every one of these comps has been at 2.5%, and they've done quite well. So we're okay to do a 2.5%. Yeah. You guys hate me for this conversation. Do 3%.
No.
Let's get it back. Yeah.
I tell players, yeah, and I agree. Like, I think we can see the 2.5% dominant. I I tell people that if you advertise at 2.5, or even if you advertise at 3%, you will buy yourself higher sell price.
Yes.
I use that term. When people are like, oh, let's talk about how many agents are going to show your house at the different percentage levels. Like you're going to see a number, so many more agents at 2.5 and 3% than you would at 2.
Yeah, and I remind people, look, what are you buying with a BAC? You're buying good buyer's agents, right? And keep in mind what kind of buyer's agents, when you offer a 1.5, a 2%, one of those that's just lower than that comfortable threshold, what are you doing to the good agents? You're forcing the good agents to make a decision. A good agent might just, well, a bad agent might not show your property, but a good agent is going to remind them that, hey, if you pursue this home, there's additional closing costs associated with buying this home. And right out the gates, you're setting them up for a little negativeness to your listing. So let's just not even go there. Offer the healthy 3%, or if the market says 2.5, stay at that point so that we are incentivizing and we are enlisting the 20,000 licensees, licensed agents in Utah to go sell your home. That's what you're buying. Don't mess with it. Don't monkey with it. It's worth it. And if you're so cut up on your net, let's go back to the value of agents, the value of my services, the value of a good buyer's agent, and knowing that we're going to maximize that price. And so sometimes people say, well, if I'm going to do that, I just want to increase the list price. Well, guess what? In this market, you probably can, but let's not do it through increasing the list price. Let's doing it through letting me work the magic of multiple offers and driving it up there, and you will net more. Yeah. Is there a hand? Yes.
I don't know, but if everybody knows this, but just recently they passed the law that the BEA has to be listed on all the listings to the public. So it's available for anybody that's looking on there. It says the buyer's brokerage commission.
BAC?
Is that in Utah?
The BAC or DBA?
Oh, yeah.
The BAC.
The BAC.
Yeah, the BAC.
Sorry, BAC.
Yeah.
The buyer's brokerage commission.
Yeah, and we knew that that was coming because of the big national lawsuit. We knew that that would happen eventually. I didn't honestly know that that was even out there, but. Yep, cool. So no hiding from that. Everyone can see it. Okay, guys, we're not done. You guys are packing up like we're done. You think we're done? We're only halfway through this manual. Just kidding. It's 3 o'clock. It's past 3 o'clock. You guys, hey, we are going to end, but we got to end with at least just a few ahas. Let's just wrap up the day. What did anybody have like that big light bulb just go off? What did you learn? Let's just share them. What do you got? Was this class valuable? If so, what was your aha? Yes, go.
I think overall it gave confidence, and being a listing agent, just knowing that everything is already in front of me. It's just how I structure it. So it's just been like a lot of like, oh, okay, this isn't as hard as I.
Your confidence, like if that Clay guy can sell houses, I can definitely sell houses because he's just yammering away about garbage. Okay, I like it. Confidence, good. What else? Just got a couple more, and I'll let you out of here. Go.
I never did it for listing, and I will definitely.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. What else? Daniel.
Basics haven't changed. A lot of people are looking for like the shiny object of how you sell for the top dollar, but it's really basics, right? There's some new things thrown in there for marketing, but.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys saw that graph, the foundation of models, the creativity on top, that has not changed. The fundamentals of selling homes is there, but there are disruptors, there are changes. Gen Z will be fascinating to watch. They can't afford houses. How are they gonna, buy houses? Like, are they gonna just be the renting generation? Like, how does that affect us? I don't know. Like stuff's gonna happen. How people look at homes, frankly, hasn't changed a whole lot. It's still a lot online. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Fundamentals are there. What else? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The checklist. And that's the part that we're skipping today, guys, is after you have the listing, what is that checklist? It's in here, right? So follow it, the fundamental steps. And I'll just say this on that topic, and that is remember that you do everything as a listing agent. If the buyer's agent messes up, you messed up. If the lender messes up, you messed up. So there is a lot of hand-holding. Be that listing agent that just owns it all and just gets it done. Buyers agents will appreciate working with you. The lenders will appreciate working with you. And most importantly, your clients will enjoy working with you. The whole purpose of this class, oh, I'm on the wrong slide, so I'll just show it to you. As you guys see, is that this is a seller cycle, right? They present this class as a cycle. And the last aha that I want you guys to go out of here is selling a house isn't a one and done and they're done. It's repeat business. So when you nail this process, you'll get an Ashley Morrill in your life. Ashley Morrill has sold 8 homes with me. And I'm not like an old guy. She's pretty young. But you add a divorce in there, a marriage in there, and a couple investment properties, 8 transactions with Ashley. She's like my top client, right? We're great friends. And I've only been in the business 15 years, 8 transactions in 15 years, right? And so embrace this. And before you know it, your listing business will be cyclical and you'll get the phone calls. They start coming in. Next thing you know, every year you can rely on 30, 40 listings every year. It's a super great spot to be in. Anything else? We're going to end with 2 claps and an as loud as you can for being listing agents, okay? 1, 2, 3. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you.